I'd like to report that the board met in closed session and the following action was taken. The board took action. Thank you. The board took action to approve a separation agreement with the certificated employee, and that vote was unanimous. The board also took action and unanimously approved by affirmative vote of all members present the appointment of the following administrators. Jessica Galambor, Vice President of Catherine Albiani Middle School. Congratulations. Matthew Kempen, Vice Principal of Joseph Kerr Middle School. Congratulations. And Amber Clark, Vice Principal, Pleasant Grove High School. I'd also like to announce that today's meeting is being video recorded and will be available on the district's YouTube channel. Blue cards are available at the table just outside the boardroom for anyone who wishes to address the board. If you wish to address the board, please complete a card and hand it to a staff member at the table to the right of the dais. Please be sure to complete the card indicating whether the matter you wish to address is on the agenda or not on the agenda. If the matter is on the agenda, we will assume that you wish to speak when it comes time to address that item, and we will hold your card until then. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to invite our Prairie Elementary education partner to lead the Pledge of Allegiance, Ms. Etiquette Dyess, and also Robyn Riley, Principal of Prairie Elementary. Would you please come on up? You can come on up to the dais. And folks in the audience, you can actually have a seat for just one more minute while we That was a test and you passed. Thank you for being so attentive. My colleague here to my right is going to read some nice things about Ms. Dyess so you can get to know her a little bit and appreciate her as much as we do. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Welcome here tonight to our board meeting. And Prairie Elementary School is honored to recognize Erica Dyess as our educational partner. Erica and her husband Jose have been an active and supportive part of the Prairie community ever since Ariane, their 9th grade daughter, and started kindergarten at our school. They have 2 daughters currently enrolled at Prairie Elementary. Karina Dyess is in the 3rd grade in Mrs. Green's class, and Nayeli is in the 1st grade in Mrs. Morris and Avery's class. The Dyess family is active in their church and values family time as their #1 hobby. They are true educational partners with Prairie Elementary and its learning community. The Dyess engaged in frequent and open communication with teachers and support staff on behalf of themselves and others in the community. They are visible at all school functions, conferences, meetings, and volunteer to chaperone every field trip. Ariane and Analja attend the school tutoring and are part of the Paw Print Theater. The girls perform in plays for both their students at Prairie Elementary and in the evening performances for the community. The willingness of the Dyess family to be so actively involved and open in communication is continually helping to build trust between the school and our community. Erica Dyess is a true educational partner that we honor to recognize this evening. I'd like everybody to stand and remove the caps. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Stay right down. Would you like?
If you'd like to step up to the microphone and make any remarks, go right ahead.
I just said I wasn't expecting so much. I am proud to be a part of Prairie. I love the staff there, very good communication there. And the principal, we've had very many different, well, in my time, different principals, but every single one of them, we have been honored to have them as, I can say, taking care of my kids while they're in school, and I thank you guys for that.
Thank you, Ms. Dyess. You were doing employees, right? Yes. Awesome. Couldn't remember the order. Thank you again. Let's give her a round of applause. Next up, we have some presentations and recognitions. My colleague Beth Albiani is going to head down there to assist Mr. David Riley in recognizing our Employees of the Year.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. This is one of our favorite evenings of our board meetings of the year. We are asking the board to recognize our 2016-17 Employees of the Year. Representatives from AFSCME, ATU, CSEA, EG Teams, PISWA, EGA have all collaboratively worked together to select some luminaries deserving of recognition. So, great cause for celebration. We are going to start this evening with our classified employee of the year from our AFSCME unit, Kate Ramos. With Kate this evening, we have AFSCME President Jennifer Ballerini and her administrator, principal Samuel Jackman Middle School, Michael Anderson. Kate is a library technician at Samuel Jackman Middle School. She began employment with the district in 2014. She is one of a kind. Her work ethic is just one of her many attributes that demonstrate her commitment to her work performance. She goes above and beyond her job description to help serve the needs of all of our students and staff. Kate initiated and volunteers her time to our campus anime and magna club. There are 40 regular attending members. This year, she arranged to get half-price tickets for the students to the SAC Anime Convention. Arrangements were made directly with parents, all on her own time, providing an awesome time for the kids. She helps students register for a public library card and picks up books for them when they are not able. Her skill set is above the role of a library tech, and on multiple occasions has taken a leadership role. Kate is truly exceptional. Thank you, Kate, for your contributions and dedicated service to the district. Next, another classified employee of the year, this time from ATU. We have Laki Singh. Come on down, or over. Mr. Singh is accompanied this evening by Patrina Kennedy and Mr. Mike Sharp, manager in transportation. Mr. Singh is a scheduling technician in the transportation department. He began employment with the district in 2004. He is a go-to person, not just by his peers, but with the public and surrounding departments. He is known to be patient, courteous, and shows a willingness to go above and beyond. He handles company changes and redirects with professionalism and sees challenges as a chance to shine. He is extremely savvy when it comes to technology, often first trained in new software and system enhancements to help his department get up to speed on improvements and bugs. When barraged with complaints and updates, he never seems frazzled, but rather quite cool and at ease fixing each item as needed. He is a great listener and is able to put his customer's mind at ease, resolving problems within the department's ability. His level of customer service and support makes him stand out. Thank you, Mr. Singh, for your contributions and dedicated service to the district. Next, we have our CSEA Classified Employee of the Year, Janet Lamb. Janet is accompanied this evening by Sandra Barrero from CSEA and Maria Osborne, principal of Casumas Oaks High School. Janet is a paraeducator in special education, moderate severe program at Casumas Oaks High School. She began employment with the district in 2008. Janet has provided paraeducational support for the most challenging behaviors in the district. The school district is fortunate to have Janet come on board with her vast experience and expertise to work our emotionally disturbed programs. She is always professional, holds children accountable, speaks her mind, but is always thoughtful in her delivery. After 25 years of working with behaviors, she is as dedicated and passionate as ever, willing to do whatever it takes to meet the needs of the program. Janet had worked with her teacher to develop a unique curriculum, taking an 11th grade student with a history of being aggressive and threatening extreme violence, who was reading at a 2nd grade level, to a 7th grade reading level in just 2 years. This is just one of the many stories that exemplify Janet's commitment and dedication to our youth. Thank you, Janet, for your contributions and dedicated service to the district. Don't size the podium here. Yeah. Next, we have our EGA Teacher of the Year, Jennifer Hillary. Jennifer is accompanied by EGA President Kathleen Tihan and Denise Escobar, Principal, Florin High School. Jennifer is a 9-12 grade teacher, social science at Florin High School. She began her career with Elk Grove Unified School District in 2003. She transforms students and programs. She approaches every element of her professional life with a sense of urgency, as if this day, this week, this year is each student's only opportunity to learn, to grow, to succeed. Students in Miss Hillary's classes make academic progress as social scientists, as readers, as writers, and as thinkers. They celebrate each other's progress and successes as a community of learners. When she began her career at Florin High School, teachers and administrators quickly pegged her as a leader. It wasn't long before she was lured into the world of EL, first as a teacher and then quite naturally as one of the site's EL coordinators. It is unique to work with an EL coordinator that welcomes her role as an instructional leader. Due to Jennifer's unwavering vision of all teachers being academic language teachers, she has encouraged and at times helped provide professional learning at the site for the last 7 years. Jennifer Hillary is a passionate educator. Thank you, Jennifer, for your contributions and dedicated service to the district. We have one more, EGA Teacher of the Year, Elsa Lyon. Accompanied by EGA President Kathleen Tihan and Chandra Victor, Principal, Elizabeth Pinkerton Middle School. Elsa is a 7-8 grade teacher, humanities at Elizabeth Pinkerton Middle School. Her career with the Elk Grove Unified School District began in 2000. To see Miss Lyon in the classroom is to see something quite magical. Her lessons are quick-paced, engaging, and she keeps students on their toes. There is never a wasted moment in her classroom, and everything she does is intentional. Ms. Lyon is a teacher who also understands the big picture and is not confined to the four walls of her classroom. She has regularly served on leadership teams at both the site and district level. Ms. Lyon was instrumental in the planning and establishing of various structures and programs, which today gives our school a strong sense of identity and community. Elsa loves kids. She sees the person inside every student, strives to make that person feel safe, valued, and liked. Elsa genuinely cares about the people in her classroom, and they know it. She has found that magical blend of career, family, and self-care, and she does them all with grace, dignity, and a smile. Thank you, Elsa, for your contributions and dedication to the district. Next, from EG Teams, Certificated Administrator of the Year, Maggie Wade. Maggie is accompanied this evening by Dave Nevis and Larry Kuzmando, Principal, Anna Kirchgater Elementary School. Maggie is an elementary prevention intervention specialist at Anna Kirchgater Elementary School. She began employment with the district in 2004. Maggie Wade is the glue that holds our most needy students and families together. She is able to bring together services for the students and families in innovative and creative ways. This year she opened the Connection Center to help our Tier 2 and Tier 3 students and families with support. Maggie does everything she can every day to make sure every student is learning in every classroom and every subject. She supports us with ideas, advice, techniques, i.e. mindfulness, PBIS, restorative circles, so students can and are able to meet the E4 vision. She is a quiet leader who calmly articulates what she needs to convey, whether that is to an audience of adults or to children. Maggie works tirelessly to promote the health and welfare of the whole student and their environment. Her commitment to children at our school spans beyond our classrooms and our school. Thank you, Maggie, for your contributions and dedication to the district. Continuing with our EG team's recognitions, we have Administrative Support Employee of the Year, Kathleen Watt. Kathleen is accompanied by Mr. Dave Nevis and also Mr. Steve Mate, Director, Technology Services Department. Kathleen Watt is the Web Specialist in Technology Services. She began employment with the district in 2001. Kathleen Watt is a dedicated worker. She provides a pleasant and professional manner to all district employees that call for her for assistance with web page design, training, digital citizenship, and special project inquiries. Kathleen provides technical support to over 2,000 webmasters throughout the district. She is currently the project lead for migrating all middle and high school websites from the School Loop to School Messenger and maintains the new Synergy Communications website. Through her partnership and efforts, EGUSD was recognized by Common Sense Media as a 2015-16 Digital Citizenship Certified District, one of the first in Northern California. Kathleen is also a co-project coordinator for the EGUSD Time of Remembrance Oral Histories Project, dedicating many evening and weekend hours to this passion. Kathleen not only does her assigned duties in a professional, timely, and friendly manner, she has a positive attitude towards her job within the district. Thank you, Kathleen, for your contributions and dedication to service to the district. Tired, Dave? All right, here we go. EG teams, Classified Confidential Supervisory Employee of the Year, Tammy Doctor. Also accompanied this evening by Mr. Dave Nevis and Carrie Hargis, Director, Fiscal Services Department. Tammy is a Senior Financial Data Analyst in the Fiscal Services and Human Resources Departments. She began employment with the district in 2007. Tammy stepped into a newly created position that reports to two departments, Fiscal Services and Human Resources. Nice, huh? While there was a vision for this position, Tammy's efforts have far exceeded any expectations. A few specific examples of Tammy's accomplishments in just several short months are creation of processes related to sick leave benefits under the Healthy Families Act for non-contracted employees, wrapping up procedures related to the Affordable Care Act and employees not currently benefit eligible, Affordable Care Act reporting, refining procedure documents for the payroll department, implementing a new mandated process to transmit child support payments electronically, leading a project to create a new benefits flyer for prospective employees, research and coordinate efforts to embark on finding a solution to automate timesheets, working on various aspects related to the district's migration from QSS to QCC. Man, I'm exhausted just reading what she's done. It's amazing you can stand up right now. I'm a little lightheaded. All right. Like, no, we haven't really noticed a change. All right. Tammy also genuinely cares for all whom she works with. Tammy is truly amazing. Thank you, Tammy, for your contributions and dedication to the district. All right, next, our PISWA Employee Psychologist of the Year, Manuel Penalosa. Mr. Penalosa is accompanied by Tony Middletti, the president of PISWA, also Don Ross, director, student support and health services, and Denise Escobar, principal, Florin High School. Mr. Penalosa is a psychologist with student support and health services serving Florin High School. He has been a psychologist with Elk Grove Unified School District since 1984. Mr. Penaloza has been with our district for over 25 years and has been steadfast in his service to students, teachers, administrators, and parents. His ability to collaborate and form lasting connections and ties within the community is exemplary. He is very generous with his knowledge and frequently shares information with his colleagues. He has influenced and assisted new psychologists by providing excellent intern supervision. He regularly conducts assessments and assists in counseling and crisis management. Despite the heavy workload at his site, he is always quick to volunteer at other sites to provide support in times of crisis or tragedy. He is able to connect and support students of all ages and walks of life under the most challenging of circumstances. He spends long hours on his campus, arriving early and staying late in order to form lasting bonds with students and staff. His dedication to knowledge and practice of restorative justice has undoubtedly changed lives for the better. It is an honor and pleasure to work with Mr. Penaloza. Thank you for your contributions and dedicated service to the district. So please join me in a round of applause for the Elk Grove Unified School District's 2016-17 Employees of the Year. As we're arranging our photo op here, we would like to thank, I'd like to thank the staff members who made this all happen tonight, our custodial staff, Chen and Nina Salas, our food and nutrition services staff, Karen Brannon, Lupe Hernandez, and Frosya Kennedy, our chief decorator, Lori Kaminski, and our human resources team, Liz Roth, Nancy Newbould, and Karen Stroud. Also, a special thank you to those who have coordinated the various nomination and selection processes which brought us the honorees this evening. Nancy Newbould for the Teachers and Psychologists of the Year, Susan Davis and Karen Stroud for Classified Employees of the Year and EG teams, and then, of course, Dr. Bindi Graywall and Evelyn Lewin, who oversaw these processes. So thank you very much.
Family and friends, feel free to come on up to the front of the room if you want to take some pictures. Let's give one more round of applause to our Employees of the Year. So we have another group that we get to recognize today, and that is our outstanding athletes. My colleague Bobby Singh Allen is going to assist Mr. Rod Edmiston with the recognition of our scholar athletes. If I could ask our wonderful supporters of our Employees of the Year to please make some way for our student athletes to come into the room, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. We should use the back door more. It's 2 exits. Take it away, Mr. Edmiston.
President Fortuna, members of the school board, Superintendent Hoffman, Ms. Avalos. Tonight I am honored to introduce you to several teams and individual champions from our 2017 spring sports season. These extraordinary athletes have captured Sac Joaquin Section Division 1 and 2 championships and Masters championships. By capturing their championships, they have proven to be the very best in the Sac Joaquin section in the sport they compete in. My father used to tell me good things happen to those who work hard, and good things have truly happened to this group of athletes and their coaches. To achieve this level of success, it takes total teamwork or pure individual mental toughness. Each of these athletes has one thing in common. It's either dedication, determination, or perseverance. With that, it is my honor to introduce to you the Division 1 and 2 Sac Joaquin Section and Masters champions from the Elk Grove Unified School District. First team tonight is the Laguna Creek High School boys tennis team. The Laguna Creek boys tennis team is the first boys tennis team in the history of the Elk Grove Unified School District to make it to a section final at any division. And to top that off, they won it. In winning their Division II Sac Joaquin Section Championship, they defeated Mira Loma 6-3 in the semifinals and defeated Rio Americano in the finals by the same score of 6-3. They finished the season with a 22-4 record. It is my pleasure to introduce the head coach of the Laguna Creek High School boys tennis team, Carl Chapin.
Thank you. We have 6 of our top 12 here tonight, and coming out first will be our number 1 singles player, freshman Henry Huang. Played on our doubles 2 team, another freshman, Ethan Lau. Part of our doubles 1 team, junior Long Lee. Played singles 4 for the Cardinals, junior Kevin Lynn. Part of our doubles 1 team, senior Jacob Munch. Playing singles 3 for us this year, senior Jason Nee.
second group is also from Laguna Creek High School. They're the Sac Joaquin Division II individual doubles tennis champions. They are only the second boys doubles champions from the Elk Grove Unified School District, and they are the first Division II champions to ever be section champions from our district. Coach Carl Chapin is the coach of the doubles tennis champions. And the athletes, we only have half of them here tonight. The one was not able to make it, but the one that is here with us is Jason Nee. And I also would like to acknowledge Principal of Laguna Creek High School, Mr. Doug Craig.
Once again, if we have family and friends in the audience, feel free to come up to the front of the room to take a picture. Congratulations, Laguna Creek Boys Tennis.
Second team I'd like to honor tonight would be the Sheldon High School softball team. They ended the season with a 30-2 record, ranked by Cal High Sports as the top softball team in Northern California. Sheldon went to the playoffs the second year the school opened and have been to the playoffs 19 straight years. The headline in the Elk Grove Citizen said it all. Dynasty. Sheldon wins third section championship in a row. The Huskies down Tracy 6-0 for the championship, and it's the second year in a row they defeated Tracy for the championship. For 20-year head coach Mary Jo Truesdale, it was section banner number 8, which ties her with Coach Jeff Carlson from the Elk Grove baseball team for the most section titles by an Elk Grove Unified School District coach. It is my pleasure to introduce the head coach of the Sheldon High School softball team, Mary Jo Truesdale.
It's a pleasure and an honor to be back here again for the third year in a row. I'd like to recognize my coaches, John Mendonca and Deb Seliger. And now my players that are here tonight, Viana Barone, Kennedy Brown, Sarah Brown, Shelby Caro, Macy Fines, Sam Mansfield, Leah Miles, Shay Moreno, Sam Oliver, Grace Owen, and Kiana Pierce. I'd like to also thank our administration and the staff at Sheldon High School for their undying support. Without them, we wouldn't be as successful as we are. And I'd like to thank all of you for your support throughout the past 20 years also.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to acknowledge the principal of Sheldon High School. She's still here? Paula Duncan.
Mrs. Duncan, would you like to come up for the picture? Okay. Again, friends and family, feel free to come on up.
The third team I'd like to honor tonight is the Elk Grove High School baseball team. They did not make it tonight, but Principal Kathy Guy is here in attendance. I'd just like to read a little excerpt about the team. The Elk Grove baseball team is one of the top programs in Northern California year in and year out. The headline in the SAC-B said it best: like a rock, Elk Grove thunders to a baseball three-peat. Coached by Jeff Carlson the past 16 years, the Herd baseball teams have won 8 section championships. And that ties him with Mary Jo Truesdell, who just exited the room, as the winning the most section titles by an Elk Grove Unified School District coach. The title this year was their 3rd in a row and 4 of the last 5, solidifying them as one of the dynasties in section history, regardless of sport or gender. And the Elk Grove baseball team is coached by Jeff Carlson. So on behalf of the team, Principal Kathy Guy, thank you for being here to accept their certificates tonight.
Yeah.
Now we're going to honor our track and field winners. From Sheldon High School, girls 100-meter dash champion, Ty McDonald. And Coach Derek Downs. Pleasant Grove High School, the boys 100-meter dash champion, James Hampton, Coach Tony Gates. Now it's a pretty phenomenal feat that we achieved here in the Elk Grove Schools. Is we have both the boys and the girls both being 100-meter champions at the Masters meet. It's not done very often, so congratulations to the both of you. From Franklin High School, the boys 800-meter run, Xavier Weaver, Coach Marlon Patterson. Monterey Trail High School, the girls discus throw, Mackenzie Bood, Coach Robbie Longan, and Dan Hampton. From Sheldon High School, the girls 4x4 or 4x400 meter relay, Simone Abdur Rahim, Ty McDonald, Tatum LaChapelle, and Thalia Reed. Coach Derek Downs, David Stone, and we also have 2 alternates on the team, Jordan Abdur Rahim and Emily Lemp. And from the Cosumnes Oaks High School, the boys 4x400 meter relay. Josiah Johnson. Give him that. Give him the top one. Devin Bright. Pierre Scott. And Julian Johnson Millen. Coach Michael Rideout. And I'd like to acknowledge the principal of Cosumnes Oaks High School, Maria Osborne.
Come on up, Principal Osborne. Family, friends, feel free to come up to the front of the room to take pictures.
Congratulations. All of us at the Elk Grove Unified School District are very proud of you.
Nice job. Nice job. Congratulations to you. All right, congratulations to all of our scholar athletes. If we can have folks who would like to talk, take conversations out into the hallway, we'd appreciate it, since we have to continue with the meeting. So moving on, resolutions, we have none. Student expulsion recommendations, we also have none. I'm going to open public comment now for anyone who wishes to comment on an item that is not on the agenda. I don't have any blue cards, but I'm going to hold off. And I don't see anyone coming forward, so I'm going to close that public comment opportunity. Next up, we have the consent agenda, and I'm ready to take a motion on items 1 through 48.
I will make the motion with one exception for myself on item number 47. I would like to abstain on that as it pertains to my absence due to flight delay.
Okay. Okay, so we'll take that as an amendment to Ms. Singh-Allen's motion and a second. So, thank you. All in favor of approving the remaining items on the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. I see no no's, so measure passes, and we will take up item, let's see. Yep. I was just checking to see if we do that now or later. We do it now? Okay. Let's take up item 20. Go right ahead, Mr. Bettis.
Same issue last year. We had this issue last year. We had to renew our contract, but yet I requested that we would have an internal study or assessment, how we could possibly purchase a building or developed over here in the back regarding this issue?
So it's obviously it's a long-term capital decision that you're
Right.
referring to.
Right.
We're not in a position as of now, obviously, if it's something that the full board would like to take direction on. We are in a position now where we don't believe it's in our best interest to spend the amount of money that it would take to build a comparable size building, not to mention the amount of infrastructure that's been put in place because of tech services being housed there. We're very comfortable with the arrangement that we have with the property owner. We think that it's a benefit to the district. So it's part of our long-term development plan. This is an interim measure, obviously.
Right.
I don't have a date certain for you, but it is something that we continue to assess and analyze in terms of where we can house all of our district office operations.
So it's a long-term, but what do you mean by long-term?
So I guess what you're trying to ask about is when are we going to build another building as opposed to leasing one? I don't have an answer to that directly. We feel that this is the best situation for our needs now as we develop long-term measures, but it's quite costly to build a building on campus here, but it is something that we will consider in the future. We're just not at that point in time now.
Well, I understand we say 1,760,000, but yet, we're spending, almost, 25,000 per month, and, times 12. And last year wasn't it, last year it was $1 million rental agreement?
No. This is the same rate that we've received for probably the past 8 years. They have not increased the rate pursuant to the lease agreement that's been in place. It's supposed to go up by a percentage annually. We've been able to lock that, I believe, dating back to 2008.
So how do we save 1,760,000 then?
That's relative to what the actual agreement calls for in the way of rate increases over that course of time.
And what with?
Yeah, that has not been triggered or put in place in our negotiations with the property owner.
So we're still negotiating?
Now, the property owner, if, based on the contract, if the way it was laid out, if those terms were actually put into place, we would be paying more rent than we're currently paying. Because they've kept the rate the same, those are the dollars we've saved because the price hasn't increased since 2008.
So the landlord's giving us a break on the rent.
So within the last 8 years, how much have we spent on this rental? And
I would have to,
Right.
I don't have that calculation off the top of my head.
we would by now have paid for a building, maybe.
We would not have paid for it at this point.
No.
I can assure
How
you
much
of
would
that.
it cost?
It depends on the square footage and the size of the building and the location of the building. I can assure you from a capital investment perspective, we're in a better position right now with this lease relative to our overall district needs, whether it's Measure M, developer fees. Our resources right now are not keeping pace with our need at the school site level. So it would be taking dollars that we would otherwise be spending at schools and directing them at a district office location. That is, in a sense, why we're staying put where we are currently.
Okay.
And keep in mind, too, I think a positive is there's 1-year extensions.
Correct.
So, we're not locked in for 10, 15 years.
Well, sometime we're going to have to take a step to deal with this issue. It's 8 years already, and
Yeah, but again, I think the needs of our schools right now is paramount over this at this particular time, so.
and also we just passed Measure M, and so that's.
Yeah, I can assure you that through the course of Measure M's development and our capital facility needs overall, we will be assessing our district office and our administrative needs in the course of time. I just don't have a date certain to provide you right now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bettis. Ms. Singh-Allen, no need to discuss item 47. You stated why you were hanging off. Okay. So can we take a motion now on item 20 on the consent agenda? I'll move that item. We have a motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And it's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to the LCAP update, which is in the public hearing section. Okay, so I'm going to skip that. Right. Facilities update first. Mr. Rob Pierce. Long time no see.
I'm going to boot the presentation. Okay, well, thank you very much. You can see that we had a very long consent agenda. Some of that is due in part to the success of Measure M. Again, we're very grateful for that. You're going to hear a little later on tonight from Ms. Lori Ranieri with Government Financial Strategies with regard to a recent very successful bond sale that the district's conducted. But we've had a lot of work since the success of Measure M, and it's quite frankly been nonstop. We've spent a lot of time planning out projects, both with regard to Phase 1 and future phases. Thankfully, we are now in a position that we have a Citizens Oversight Committee fully appointed by the governing board. Mr. Hoffman and I have been fortunate enough to meet with each of them individually, and we'll be doing continued workshops and settings with them as we prepare them for the coming year and the fiscal oversight of Measure M. But due to the good work of Mrs. Susan Bell, who will be giving you the crux of the presentation tonight, and Susan will be here shortly. Susan is our Chief Facilities Officer. You've had the pleasure of meeting her back in January when we had our board workshop on the priorities and how we would be determining the work moving forward. But she's been quite busy since she's joined us. So tonight's actually, I believe, her maiden voyage in front of the full board. But this is a subject tonight. We put the facilities update on your regular agenda because we were hopeful and we knew that there would be a lot of work moving forward. I can assure you that the facilities update is going to be a much more frequent item now that Measure M has passed and the multitude of projects that are going to be coming before you. At the same time, we will be working with the Board Architect Subcommittee in a much more deliberate fashion than has been in the past because there hasn't been that many projects, and there certainly will be moving forward. So tonight is just an overview of where we're at as we're entering into Phase 1. You're going to hear again more later about the dollars that we now have on hand and how that bond sale went. But I again want to thank Susan Bell. I want to thank Bill Heinicke, who's the Director of Planning, and I want to thank Michael Bean, who's your Senior Construction Manager, and all of their staff for bringing this forward to you tonight. Just as a quick review, as we worked with the governing board, gosh, dating back to the development of the facility master plan, and then in January as we talked to you about the priorities moving forward. And when I say priorities, I don't want to infer that any one of these projects is more important than another. You'll recall from our discussions that we wanted to go with shovel-ready projects. We have great needs out there in projects that we can kind of call quick strike that don't need an enormous amount of state approvals, whether it be the Division of State Architect, California Department of Ed, or other things. So we know the needs are there. And I want to just touch on a couple points from our facility master plan. You'll recall that we had facility condition assessment needs. Those are really just the bones of the buildings and the building systems of close to $600 million district-wide. And many of those are projects that we can proceed with now. We had about $400 million in district modernization needs, and that's based on state modernization eligibility. Those are projects that are going to require a lot of planning, a lot of work at the site level, a lot of work with the board, but also there's some of that that's available now as well. And then lastly, we had about $100 million in stakeholder identified needs, whether those are principals, teachers, community members through our surveys, roughly $1 billion worth of need. Now this first phase that Ms. Ranieri will be talking to you about later is only about $82 million worth of projects. I say only, that's a lot of money, but relative to our need, it's not a huge amount of work. What's not mentioned here is about $600 million worth of growth needs that we'll be funding through developer fees, also through state dollars, hopefully, and also to a slight degree, Measure A and Measure M. So again, just a review. So aside from kind of shovel-ready or quick strike projects, you'll recall that when we worked with you in January, we were thankful that not only Measure M passed, but that Proposition 51 passed, which is the statewide bond. We know that those dollars are going to go very quickly. So one of the priorities that we recommended to the board and that the board concurred with was, let's move forward with projects now that we can tie up those state dollars before they go to other districts and they're gone forever. And let's move forward with projects so that we can bring every dollar back to our community based on the success of Proposition 51. And I think you'll hear from Susan how we were able to do that. And that's the type of work that we're moving forward now. So there is an unfunded backlog, but there's only about $2.3 billion of statewide dollars for modernization that's available to the entire state. So we want to tie that money up, and we want to make sure we get our fair share, and that's an objective that we were able to meet here in this first phase. And then there's other projects. This is just an example of other type of work that's out there that we can tie up modernization money, but you'll recall Proposition 39, which is the energy conservation measure. We have 39 projects at 26 sites district-wide that include things like heating and air conditioning. Again, those are needs through our facility condition assessment, but also pertain to Proposition 39, as well as lighting and roofing upgrades. And $7 million in funding has already been received from Proposition 39, but we're going to leverage that with Measure M, and at the same time turn those into projects that we submit to the state so that we can tie up Proposition 51 dollars. And then we have some projects in terms of modernization that are available. 19 of the 26 Prop 39 projects also have modernization eligibility, and that's touching on the point I just made. So before I turn it over to Susan, I just want to reiterate to the board, this has been a fluid process. It's going to continue to be a fluid process. None of this is really set in stone up until the point that we bid and award these contracts. You're going to see a lot of that moving forward. You've already approved some of these projects that are before you. And so tonight we're going to touch on those. And it gets complex when we talk about the leveraging of dollars. You're going to hear from Susan about CTE and CTIG grant dollars, where we're able to leverage CTIG money with Measure M money and in effect double the size of the project that the CTE grant would have otherwise afforded. And we're going to be doing the same with other dollars. You have some big projects that are coming forward here in the coming board agendas, one of which is the 5 artificial turf and track projects. We did receive bids on that yesterday, but I do want to thank again the Facilities and Planning Department. We have been warned and told throughout that no matter what your cost estimates are from your architectural firms, because there's so much work out there in the capital market, whether it be commercial, public, federal, state, or private, that there's really not the workforce or the labor to maybe bring these projects, or at least at a cost that we've estimated. We are thankful to date that really hasn't surfaced. All of our projects thus far have come in really close or tight to the estimated value, and I really want to thank Susan and her staff for ensuring that's the case, because it's not as easy as just putting it out there on the open market, but it takes collaboration and discussions with those private parties as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Susan, and we'll be back before you to answer any questions.
Welcome to your maiden voyage, Ms. Bell.
Okay, the first slide, as we talked in January, we had kind of a plan all mapped out. Different sites that we had targeted, they had Prop 39 eligibility, they had modernization eligibility, and then the winter hit. And as everybody knows, it was one of the rainiest winters we've seen in a really long time. So we sprung a few leaks, and we had to add some critical roofing projects to our project list. Some of those are they've already been bid, and they're already actually under construction. At Valley High Gymnasium, there's a new roof going on now, and as it would unusually happen, we had rain hit again, and we had a few leaks even despite the new roof going on. They knew rain was coming, they covered it, but we still got a little bit more water in the building. So we're trying to prevent that from happening. So we've got this list of projects that are hopefully going to withstand this winter. Those are certainly not all the roofs that are needed to be done at those school sites, but they're the ones that were most critical, and during the winter we did take on some water. So then we can go back to our plan, our modernization in Prop 39 and leveraging those dollars together. And we've got a project that will be launching soon at Elk Grove Elementary School, where we'll be putting new HVAC and new roofs on. And these are all slides that you saw back in the January presentation. And what we've done is we've added 2 new columns. And a lot of our work is dependent upon weather and whether or not there are students in the classrooms. So when we try to do HVAC and roofing, we like to do that in the summer months where it's easy to mobilize that kind of activity without having students on campus. So the other work, it's going to be a little bit more time sensitive, so we're going to push those off till 2018. And you'll see that at Elk Grove Elementary, we'll be seeing new HVAC and roofing at a couple of the buildings. Then we'll go to John Reith Elementary, and this is a project that we just got proposals in on this yesterday, and we'll be doing new roofing and some HVAC as well. But the HVAC component will not be able to go until we've got the roofing done, because there's some structural issues that we may have to deal with. We're anticipating, because there was so much water damage at that location, that we may have to do maybe a little bit more intensive roof repairs before we can do that HVAC work. Next project will be Sierra Enterprise, and this one has already bid, and a contract has been is ready to be awarded. So we'll see this activity starting probably in the next couple of weeks, and that will be all new HVAC and cool roofing on most of the buildings. Next one will be Union House, and the same thing, new HVAC and cool roofs. And the other work that we are considering phase one work will take place in 2018. And some of the work we can do during the winter months, so we're trying to keep all the construction activity going so that we don't lose momentum. So some of the interior work, things like LED lighting, some lighting controls, those kinds of things, we're going to try to do those during the winter months. Now, as Rob mentioned, we've done a lot of planning with John Pellman over there, he's got his hand up, to do some career technical work. And John is actually kind of the project manager, and he has been with us. He's almost like an employee of ours. And he has a whole scheme of all the work that needs to be done there. And the portion that we help him with is to do some of the phasing of things and helping him with construction. He's actually learning really quickly all the language of construction. So there will be new CTE projects taking place at each one of the high schools. And we're even talking about possibly doing some new buildings at those locations as well. So that's still in planning. There's a few of the smaller projects that are under construction right now, and they're due to be finished in August, ready for school to start. Now at James Rudder, as you all know, we had a fire. So we are currently planning and developing the plans for the restoration of that building. Those plans will go to DSA next week, and then we will start the restoration as soon as we're able to bid that out. And then shortly thereafter, we will start working on a new science building for that location, because the current science building has very small classrooms, and it really isn't adequate to science as we're teaching it now. So we'll see a new science building being planned for that site. Now, Rob mentioned that we've got some turf and track projects going, and those will be happening at Florin High School, Franklin High School, Laguna Creek, Pleasant Grove, and Valley. And those will be projects that will take the natural turf out and put in artificial turf so that soccer season can run during the winter. At Valley High School, they already have a track, so we won't be putting a track there, but we'll put a track in at the other 4 sites. That will probably start the first week of July. And we're hoping to have that finished in time for soccer, which starts on November 5th. And then our next batch of projects are projects that are currently in planning, ready to go to construction, and Florin High School is one that we're going to bid out here. Florin High School has a lot of modernization eligibility, and there's a lot of work to do at Florin High School. So the first wave of project that we'll be doing is replacing all the shingles on the roofs, skylight replacements, LED lighting and controls. That's something that we'll do during the winter months, and smart power controls for computers. That's a pretty simple thing. And we'll see exterior painting, and of course they're getting the track and field. At Franklin High School, we'll be doing power controls. This is one of the Prop 39 items, and efficient water heaters. And then that will also see a new track and field. Laguna Creek, smart power controls for the computers, again another Prop 39 item, and then the all-weather track and field. Pleasant Grove High School, same thing. And our final one is Valley High School, where we'll be doing, in addition to the smart power controls for the computers, efficient water heaters. Now, starting in 2019, we're working on our list already for 2018, and we're anticipating a critical roofing project. So what we're doing is we're going through our projects that are eligible for modernization, which ones haven't had roofing done for a really long time, and we work with the maintenance and operations department, and they tell us which roofs they've had issues with. So we've got a list of a number of them, and depending on how the winter goes, we may add a few more. So we'll have new roofing at Folks Ranch, Alitha Donner, John Earhart, Herman Leibach, Harriet Eddy, Toby Johnson, and Valley High School. And where we have gone through and done maybe 1 or 2 roofs this summer, if there's more roofing that needs to be done at that site but maybe wasn't as critical, we're trying to reach a kind of a place where all the roofs are going on at the same time so that it's easier to track that in the future. If we know in 2017 we did all the roofs at this location, then we don't really have to start thinking about them until we're aware that those warranties are coming up. Then we're looking at a bunch of the school sites that have modernization eligibility, and we've got some elementary schools, Florin, Isabel Jackson, David Reese, Pleasant Grove. Those are ones that we're starting the planning on what to do at those school sites for their modernizations. Same, and then with our middle schools, Harriet Eddy, Samuel Jackman, Joseph Kerr. Now most of these projects we've already assigned an architect to them, so they've started working on the planning. And then our 2 high schools that we'll be working on will be Elk Grove and Florin High. We'll be finishing up the Prop 39 work because those dollars have well, they're working on legislation to extend that expenditure deadline. So we do have a deadline on when those funds have to be spent. So we're keeping an eye on that. We'll be spending that money or working on projects to spend that money. The projects that listed there are the ones that we still have some work to do. Those are also currently in planning. Some of them are actually close to being approved so that we can move forward on them. But with those projects, a lot of them involve HVAC and roofing, so we'll be waiting until probably the summer months or early spring to start those. Let's see, we're going to launch a district-wide shade shelter project, and we're hoping to run that between December of 2017 through 2018, and however long it takes us to do about, I think there's 33 of them. So any school that doesn't have a shade shelter where the students can have lunch or at least get out of the shade during their recess period, we'll be putting a shade shelter in, and you can see the list there. Let's see, in 2018 too, we're considering whether or not we'll have to do a new construction project for the new Franklin Elementary School. That has already been designed, approved by DSA, and it's ready to go if we decide to launch that project. In conjunction with the turf and track projects that we're doing this year, we will put together a package so that we can get good pricing on doing some scoreboards for those school sites. Then we've got some lighting upgrades that are also part of the Prop 39 funding that we got, and we'll put that together as a project. When we can, we try to group things together so that we can get the best pricing that we can instead of launching individual projects. So we'll have approximately a dozen LED lighting upgrades at gymnasiums across the district. And that's kind of it, unless anyone's got some questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bell.
I want to add a couple things.
Okay.
So a lot of this, frankly, is in the absence of a deferred maintenance program. You'll remember that the state cut the deferred maintenance program. So when you see all the roofing projects, those are roofs that have gone without repair for a number of years, and we're paying the price now. But thankfully for Measure M, we'll be able to address those. I know those aren't the most feel-good projects in the world, but I can promise you when you have a leaky roof and the building's not secure, it causes a number of other issues. And in terms of the other modernization projects that Susan's talking about, we just ran through close to $100 million worth of projects there on the screen quickly. But the amount of planning, and I'm sincere when I say this to the board, Susan and her staff and going out and retaining the architect, so it was previous authorization that the board gave when they shortlisted those architects. They are out in the field as we speak, and I would invite you to talk to some of those principals, whether it's at Elk Grove High, at Sierra Enterprise, I mean, Florin High, you name it, and they're out there rolling up their sleeves, working with the site, the administration, the teachers, the stakeholders, and then Susan and her staff to make sure those are going to be really large, robust projects that the community and the schools are going to really appreciate. But it's taking time, and it's taking time because you want to do it right. And so those are projects that you won't see the hammers and nails necessarily in phase one, but the planning's happening. And so that's...
Mr. Pierce, before you proceed, we do have some questions. Mr. Madison?
Oh, go ahead if you want to finish, Rob, on that.
Oh, no,
I thought he was moving on to a different item. Were you moving on, or did I interrupt you?
Nope, we're good.
Oh, I apologize.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, Ms. Bill, I wanted to ask on the, you mentioned the interior, that you're going to wait on some of that till the fall. My concern is some of the schools, you mentioned Union House or John Reith, the flooring is atrocious in there and it's bad. It can't be cleaned because I've gone into some of those schools and I see kids sitting on some of the horrible carpets that are in there. So I'm just a little concerned, how is that being addressed in terms of the interior as we move forward? Can this be done before the new school year begins, or?
Specifically with John Reith, is we've got to get that building watertight.
Understand.
All those buildings are, so our approach kind of is, let's make sure the shells are good. Let's keep the water out so everything inside doesn't get damaged. As soon as we get that portion done, then we're going to move inside. Inside is, it takes a lot of logistical finagling to get interior work done. We've got to have students out of the way. We have to have teachers box things up in a lot of cases. And then we can move in and do flooring and carpet and paint, and if there's casework that needs to be done, then we can do that. And again, we're going to be limited to breaks, or maybe during the summer, or we have to come up with an interim housing plan. So to do work inside is really a challenge for us, but we are going to get there as soon as we get kind of these exterior issues solved.
Okay.
Our goal is, with a modernization, is to make all those classrooms look new again. We get to do it once every 25 years with a permanent building, once every 20 years with a portable. So we're going to take that opportunity, and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right.
Okay. My next question, too, is Florin High School, the parking lot.
It's on our list.
Okay.
It's on our list.
That is, well, I won't even go there.
We were just meeting about that today and trying to decide, because Florin High School is going to undergo a pretty significant transformation just this summer. We'll see new paint, we'll see new shingles, and driving by, you'll look at it and you'll think, wow, what happened? So then we will, we're debating whether to move inside for the next phase and then put the parking lot behind that, or whether to put the parking lot first and then do the inside after. So we're still wrestling with that idea.
Okay. And then lastly, Leinbach Elementary School, we talk about shade shelter and so forth, and I meant to bring this up a while back. Entering the office, we need to look at possibly an overhang. When parents come out of that office, I've been there, the rain's coming down, there's absolutely nothing. You just open the door and you're in the office, and all the other schools, we have shelter that they can at least stand, or kids can wait till their parents come pick them up, et cetera. So I am concerned about that too as well. Okay?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Bettis?
You mentioned shade for, like, when they go to the cafeteria and they eat and they need place to eat and underneath this. Okay. Also, there's some school grounds also that need some shade. I mean, need some trees or fast-growing trees, I think, within some of our schools. I'm concerned about the turf issue. I've been reading since last couple of years, turfs and like the Sac State, they have the best turf, but yet it's falling apart. So what are we going to do? What type of turf are we going to get? Is it like a sod? What are you talking about? Or is this the track turf or what's, okay.
I just want to point out one thing with regard to the shade structures. Other than parking and drop-off, to Mr. Madison's point with Florin, the number one response that we received from our community via the surveys and our site administrators was shade shelters.
Yes.
I mean, that across the board was always in the top 5, and that's what we're talking about
Good.
here.
Okay, great.
I would agree there's some landscaping needs out there that we'll be addressing as well. So the artificial turf, I mean this seriously, but I was joking to myself. Sac State doesn't have the best turf we do.
Right,
But,
right.
So we have, in this district, we have had a very deliberate selection process at the stadiums that we have now. We've continued that both with the turf and the track. So in this case, we're talking artificial turf. I can tell you that it has felt so good for me personally, and I know for you as a school board, when you hear these nightmare stories at these other projects, not just with regard to construction quality or lack thereof, but with regard to heavy metals and toxins in the turf product.
Heat.
In the heat,
Right.
we don't have that. And in this case, we're moving to a different direction. We have Mondo turf now, which has an eco-fill. It's a recyclable product. It's pale green. It's light. It doesn't have the heat issue. It has no heavy metals or no toxins. The product that we're going to be recommending to the board is actually through Field Turf, but it's a cork infill. So it's 100% natural. There's no toxins to it. It's cooler than the other fields that you see. But because of the design term or field that you've allowed us to hire, Verde Construction, that's all they do. And then the recommendation we're bringing to you for the contractor is Bothman, based on the proposals we have yesterday. We still have some scoring to do, but that's what they do, and that's all they do. And so we're very confident in not only our product selection, but the contractor as well. So it's a good point, because when they go bad in a hurry.
And
so
some
you take your
fold
time.
under, they
Yeah.
fold under and
Yeah.
there's no insurance, nothing.
We won't have that. In fact, our fields will be warranted for 8 years. And again, the contractor that we're going to be recommending is top notch, and that's what they do. But it's a good point, because when you try to cut corners, you pay for it.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Singh Allen, I saw your hand.
Yes, thank you. I don't have any questions, just a couple of comments. Generally speaking, I think it's great that we have this presentation tonight to share with the public, and we've got media here to report back sort of, what the voters voted for and what that looks like even in a phase 1. I know that there's a lot of, questions in the community of when, and, people are anxious to see. So I'm excited that we do have this going on, sounds like immediately, and of course over the summer. So we'll be able to see some tangible results from an early phase of some of that implementation. And I think you've handled it very beautifully here. It's very transparent, categorized very clearly, enhances accountability and everything. So as a school board member, it's always great to show back to the community that we are protecting the public purse, if you will, and that we are being very mindful, and we are putting it to good use. So thank you for that.
By the way, I just want to mention on the line block, it was an excellent job remodeling that office. It's just that we left that portion out, coming out of the office. There was just nothing there.
And you brought that up. It is south-facing, and every time there's a storm,
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Martinez-O'Leary?
I'd just like to echo the comments. I appreciate the work you've done on the project so far, and looking forward to the first phase. Also, I know this is a huge undertaking, so I think management is really important and key here, and again, look towards you for the work and the reporting back on getting certain projects done and the timeline of things, because I know we have, we're going full force, and we have a lot of objectives that we want to achieve, so just making sure those are done within that timely manner, I think, is very important as well. So thank you.
Any questions on this side? Any comments? Okay, thanks very much. Thank you for an excellent report. I just want to echo Ms. Bobby Singh Allen's comments that, not only does it make it easier for us to understand, but it makes it easier for the voters and all of our constituents to understand. And I particularly appreciate the way that you package those projects. Not only is it easier to bid, but it's easier for folks to understand, by X date certain, we're going to make sure we have shade structures across the district and things like that. So thanks so much for your work.
I did forget to add one thing. As we do these projects, we've got a sign program that's going currently. And so you'll start to see signs. Thank you, Measure M, this is funded by that. So you'll start to see those pop up in the community. And that should be happening probably within the month.
Okay.
What about your presentation? Will it be on our Elko Unified School District webpage also?
With this presentation, all of our meetings are put on the YouTube page.
Highlight it.
And you're gonna actually have a web page dedicated to Measure M.
Very good.
That will be coming out. Yep.
Beautiful idea.
Yep.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our annual update on the Family and Community Engagement Office. Mr. Mark Cerruti. Oh, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Hold tight, Mr. Cerruti. That was your heads up. First up, bargaining units. Do we have any bargaining unit that wishes to address the board? Okay, I'm sorry for that. So, okay. And I guess we can't get enough of Mr. Pierce tonight. I jumped ahead a little bit. So, Mr. Pierce, would you like to come back up and talk to us about the bond issuance? Sorry. You should just stay up here. Sorry about that. I lost my place.
Update on bond sale, correct?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to invite Miss Lori Ranieri to the podium. You guys know her very well.
Yes.
And so we have some really exciting results to share with the board. Again, it's just phase 1 of 5 phases, hopefully, in terms of bond sales. I can tell you, I spent the day at Ms. Ranieri's office when the bond sale occurred, and I'm sure she's seen it before, but I'll just tell you, the low 3 bidders on our bond series were all within 1 basis point of each other, which I frankly have never seen. That's a good thing for you. That's a great thing for our taxpayers, and it's a good thing for our projects. And just to put it in perspective, not that $40,000 is chump change, but the second low bidder on an $82 million bond sale missed the bond sale by $40,000. It just doesn't happen that often. So Ms. Ranieri has a lot more details than that to share with you, but it's wonderful news. I want to thank her and her staff. They're very, very, very diligent in their work, and you'll see that here as well in terms of the success.
Good evening. I'm going to be very brief. You've had a long meeting so far and lots of, it's hard to imagine that I could get you more excited than you are already with all of those wonderful honorees, with all of those wonderful stories, and it inspires me, and it makes me and everybody in our company really proud to be part of the Elk Grove team, because not only do we see the good things that are happening, but we see all the honor that you give to the community members and the staff that do it. So it's great to be part of all that. But I am going to be brief because Rob said no more than 15 minutes. So I'm going to talk about the bond sale process, review of the district's use of government finance officers, best practices, talk a little bit about the debt portfolio. I want to show you something new that because of new information technology, we can see how the bonds trade in the market, and then I'm going to wrap up. So first thing I want to start out is that we had a very interesting strategy with respect to our credit rating, and this is one of the things that made a big difference in our bond sale. We sold COPs just last year, as you recall, and we expected our rating to be 1 rating grade above the COPs, because that's typical for GO bonds, and we specifically chose to get rated with Moody's because they have a very quantitative approach that we thought that would serve the district better, and it did. In fact, we got a AA2 rating, which is, believe it or not, the same rating category as the United States. So that's pretty darn good. But then we did something else that was a new thing, which is that people, you know, bond ratings apply to people issuing bonds across the United States, including Puerto Rico and Guam. And I bring that up because Puerto Rico is in default on its bonds, but it's across the United States, and the rating is supposed to have the same meaning no matter where it is, whether it's a cemetery district or a school district. And one of the interesting things is that these bonds, as a matter of law, we think they're protected in a bankruptcy proceeding, that they could not come in and claim the taxes that are oriented to the bonds, so why wouldn't they be AAA, if that makes sense, that quick little logic. So there's a new strategy that was developed as a product by one of the rating agencies that isn't quite as popular Fitch ratings that they'll give you a AAA if you otherwise meet their credit criteria and you give them a legal opinion that says it'll be protected in bankruptcy. And so we worked with Dan Mauricia, who's our bond counsel. He did a great job on this, and we got the AAA from Fitch. So AA from Moody's, AAA from Fitch, still the same bonds, but that made it a little more appealing to our bidders. We had a competitive bid process, 8:35 a.m. That little 5 minutes is to make sure that a bid that's late according to 8:30 is on time according to 8:35. So that's why we do that. We never want to have a winning bidder not be able to be accepted. And we sold $82,100,000 just as intended. We use an internet bidding platform. Everybody in the market has access to this. Every bank, every investment bank that trades in municipal bonds can use this bidding platform. We also post in the bond buyer industry newspaper. It's sort of like the Wall Street Journal for municipal bonds. And the other thing we do is we allow the bidding to be very flexible, meaning that we know what we want and we take away all other constraints that don't affect us so that our bidders can make money in a variety of ways. And we actually see that when we see their bids, we can tell whether they're selling more retail, more institutional. And in fact, our winning bidder was making derivatives out of these bonds as soon as they got their hands on them. And I'll explain how I know in a minute. But we don't care because we got what we needed and they can do what they want in the market. But we allow them to make the money the way they want, and that means that we'll get more competition and better results for taxpayers. So our market is very volatile, and if you're not a numbers person, you might say, oh, big deal, 2.8, 3.95. That's a 40% jump in interest rates. That's huge. And then they came down. And you might think that I wouldn't be such a happy person if I had to deal with this volatility in a way different than I do, because it might make me nervous. It doesn't make me nervous because we plan for volatility and we plan for interest rates to go up. We don't need to plan for them to go down because if they go down, we're happy, right? So we plan for them to go up, and we use historical volatility, and we assume that interest rates in the future will be higher than they are now. So as long as they don't go up higher than the high we expected them to go, then we're always going to be within our metrics. And so the next thing, I had to work a little humor in here. This is Dogbert, the CEO. Please don't mention anything about my being partial to dogs. He says we're getting into the financial services game. That way all of our products can be imaginary. Later, one of the employees is with a customer, and the customer says, can you give me reliable investment advice? The employee says, yes, as far as you know. Now, anybody can come with a nice PowerPoint, but we really try to be transparent, and we want to answer any questions that anybody has about this process. And as you know, we invited anybody who wanted to come to attend the sale. And that invitation was so highly regarded, we had an audience of one, which we very much appreciated. Now, these are our bid results, and Mr. Pierce described just how close our top bidders were: Bank of America, Citi, and JP Morgan. We had 7 bids, and a couple comments I want to make. First of all, Bank of America, when we sold COPs last year, they were our 7th place bidder. So you can't, just because somebody wins a bid one time doesn't mean they'll win the next one. It has to do with what else they have in inventory, what are they doing, what's their strategy, lots of reasons. And so Bank of America Merrill Lynch was our winning bidder. And yes, very tight bidding. Now, what does that mean to us when there's very tight bidding? It means there was good information in the market, that people weren't misunderstanding what they were buying. And our winning bidder always likes the second place bidder to be right behind them, not too far, because they don't want to leave money on the table. But the other thing is, I want to point out some of the other firms that bid. Robert Baird and Raymond James. Those are kind of retail firms. They're not nearly as big as Bank of America, Citi, JP Morgan, but they wanted to get into this game too. And I also want to comment on Wells Fargo. Does anybody remember seeing Wells Fargo's name in the headlines? So in a lot of situations where business is given to them through RFP, they've lost that business. In fact, the state treasurer put them on a year penalty box category, and they can't do business with the state. So we see them being more active in the competitive market, and that's fine, because we're not judging them on their morals. We're judging them on how much they're going to pay us for the bonds, and we want the best deal for taxpayers. That's our goal. So the other thing is we pre-qualified for bond insurance because we always do that, and we didn't know that everything would go well with the Fitch AAA, but all of the bond insurers, all of whom used to be AAA, that's what the standard for insurance was. You'd buy insurance in order to get a AAA. They all lost their AAA ratings during the financial crisis. And if you want to know more about that, go see the movie The Big Short. And if you need somebody to go with you, I'll watch it again because I loved it. But in any case, we qualified for bond insurance, but nobody took it. And we think it was because we had that Fitch AAA, which was great. Now, here's the dollar difference in bids. And I tried to animate that, so I just want you to see how that goes. Okay. You can see from the first place bidder to the last place bidder, that alone was worth almost $1 million. So having this sale, which might seem like more trouble, just that alone, I don't think you get as good a bid as your last place bidder if we didn't do the competitive bidding. That's just my assertion. I don't have any science behind that, but it was $1 million. So we really had a great sale. The other thing is, remember, we've got more bond sales coming. So we want the market to be hungry for what we have to offer and to know the Elk Grove name. Now the next thing that's interesting is where these bids came from. JP Morgan, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, and Citi all bid on other bonds that our clients sell, but they don't all bid from New York. They have offices in Los Angeles and San Francisco. Almost every bank nowadays has an office in North Carolina, and yet look at the number of bids that we had from New York, and then Baird, which is a regional firm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Raymond James, regional firm from St. Petersburg, Florida. So we think it's interesting that we had this New York attention on these bonds. We think it's because of the size and that AA, AAA rating. And then the other thing that's interesting is it is highly likely that the investors will be from California because they get the double tax-free benefit. It's tax-free from federal and state income tax. The only investors outside of California that would really get a good value from buying these bonds are people who live in a state with no income tax, like Nevada. So it's interesting. So it isn't that the California offices of these firms weren't involved, but the bid came from the top person in New York, if that makes sense. So we thought that was interesting. And then these are the reoffering yields. And the reoffering yields is basically taking into account the coupon, which is the interest rate we bid, plus the underwriter's discount. So we can see, one of the things this shows us is we look at how the different people are pricing the bonds, and how they price differently tells us where they thought they would sell them based on their bid. Because when they put in a bid, they have to be prepared to buy all the bonds and turn around and sell them. So it tells us a little bit of a story. So when we saw the reoffering yields that Bank of America was doing, it made me curious. And so I'm going to tell you in a few minutes about these derivatives. But this is what we assumed on March 3rd the interest rates would be. And then we assume that we're not going to get AAA rates. This line, that's AAA rates in March, according to the municipal market data. And the difference at the bottom is the number of years outstanding. So 1-year rate, 2-year rate, 3-year rate, and so on. And then we say, you know what? The spread, based on what we thought we were going to get, the credit quality, we thought that was going to be the spread that you see here, which is about 1.35%. In fact, it's exactly 1.35%. And then we were lucky, MMD dropped. So we had them go up, but I didn't have a heart attack, and then they came back down. And then, because of our strategy, look how close we got to MMD. So we narrowed that spread. So we're very close to the very top rates at every level. And in the short maturities, you can see we're actually right on MMD. So we really did well. And you might say, well, why weren't we at MMD? Our AAA came from Fitch. Our AA2 came from Moody's. This MMD is based on Moody's and S&P ratings. So these opinions are viewed differently in the marketplace. So we feel really good about the results we got. This is the sources and uses of funds table, and we did much better in every category than expected. And the most important one is that we have more than $2.3 million additional going into our building fund. And the reason is that we didn't buy the insurance, which is expensive, and our underwriter's discount was less than expected. So again, we assume that we're going to pay the highest costs, and then we get the lowest costs, and that pays off for taxpayers and for our schools. Now, in addition to the higher proceeds, we had lower debt service. So we got over $2 million more, $2.3 million, and it cost us almost $12.5 million less. Now that sounds counterintuitive, but remember, we are very conservative with our assumptions because we want a plan that will survive bad market conditions and allow for upside in good conditions. This is the upside that we were able to take advantage of. Our projected tax levies, the average is now $37.68. Our average before the election, remember our target was 38 and our average was 37.98. I know you weren't upset about the 2 pennies we left on the table trying to get in there. So that's a little bit lower, and our goal is, as we go through the bond sales, to continue to beat that. So I would say tax rates right on target. And then if we use more than half a dozen GFOA best practices, we really appreciate that this is a best practices district, and you know, we review the GFOA best practices and we review them with staff, and we're able to bring 7 of them to play here. We monitor the debt portfolio going forward, and then here's what I want to talk about with initial trading. So the electronic municipal market access, EMMA for short, is a relatively new system that allows us to actually follow bonds as they're sold. And this is a simple example I wanted to give you, and I put a little cheat sheet at the left-hand side. So on the top box on the left-hand side, that is in our final official statement. Those are the reoffering prices of the bonds to the market. The right-hand box is we're able to look up the trading on this EMMA, and the lower left is my little Howard Cosell cheat sheet. So just looking at one maturity, the 2034 maturity, we sold $2,215,000 worth of bonds to the winning bidder, which was Bank of America, and then they resold those bonds to another broker dealer for a difference on that $2.2 million of $34,000 and change. 7 minutes later, that broker dealer sold them again, and only a difference of $1,000, and then they got into the hands of a customer, $6,000 price change. What does it all mean? In summary, the bonds that were worth $2,176,238 on May 11th, on May 23rd, the day of these trades, were worth $2,218,411, a difference of $42,000. So that's how that market moves. I just thought I would share that with you. Now, how do I know about the derivatives? Because I could actually look up and see these bonds being sold into pools of derivatives. So there's interdealer trades, there's customers. I didn't put it up here, but I thought that was interesting, and this is why I think we got that New York attention. The reason we got the New York attention is New York is where they have the people who make the derivatives, and because we had the AAA and the AA, and we had a pretty large amount, that gave them something to work with. It's not worth the trouble if you're only selling 10 million. Does that make sense? So we really played into a little niche in the marketplace of what people were interested in. So that's a conclusion. Lower debt service, less taxes, more proceeds for projects. Those are all the metrics we work with, doing really well. And the key is that we've now set the foundation for our future bond sales to be on time and hopefully on budget. So I'll be glad to answer any questions, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. I will start to my right with Ms. Albiani. Any questions?
You keep saying derivatives, it's flashbacks of college. Nervous. Thank you very much. You make it very understandable, and it's great. Like you said, the winner is our taxpayer and our students, and that's the most important thing. So it's great that we did the proper planning, and it was very successful. Thank you for being our partner in that.
I have no questions. I'm just excited about it, and a very good explanation. Always good to hear you, how you explained it to us. Thank you.
To my left, Mr. Bettis, anything?
No, thank you. Very good presentation. I think I got it in the wrong field. No, so that broker, I mean, that company made $42,000 after buying it and selling it?
Well, the bonds changed value, but they went through the hands of the initial underwriter, then 2 more brokers, and then got into the hands of the customer. But and the market is moving, right? So from May 11th to May 23rd, so the price is being adjusted for that.
Ms. Allen?
No questions. Great presentation. I always learn when you come up here. Brand new field, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing the great news.
I just want to thank Ms. Ranieri and her staff. I can promise you we're in very good hands with their work. None of their work will result in the nightmares that you might hear up and down the state when it comes to bonds. I was waiting for her to say we watched the governor's budget together that day, and it wasn't our highlight. This was. So thank you.
Yeah, great work. So I'm going to actually, Mr. Hoffman, did you have any comments or questions? I'm sorry. So just since it's on topic, I want to share that I was appointed to the Treasurer's Steering Committee for the, was it AB 1029 initiative that's about educating school board members, among other elected officials, about everything we need to know about making smart decisions when taking on debt. And I feel like thanks to you two, Ms. Ranieri and Mr. Pierce, that I have a leg up on that, so thank you so much. Yeah. Next up, let's see if I managed to get the order right this time. Yeah, Mr. Cerruti.
Well, good evening and thank you. Members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman and Ms. Avalos. Appreciate the opportunity this evening, and I just want to highlight a few fabulous guests that are here with me this evening and colleagues. First of all, Mr. Roth is here, who's our Director of Student Support and Health Services and who works directly with Ms. Levasseur and all the fabulous work that's going on in the Office of Family and Community Engagement. And of course we have Ms. Levasseur, who's going to be joining me in just a moment. And we have Mr. Omar Field Ridley, our principal of Charles Mack, will be up with us in just a moment. Bernadette Best Green, a 6th grade teacher from John Reith Elementary. Shanetta Briggs, elementary counselor at John Reith and Samuel Kennedy. And Liz Delgado, a parent from Earhart Elementary. So they're going to give you some first-hand information about some of the great work that's going on in our partnership and our visitation, home visitation programs. And with that, we're going to jump right in. And so we ground all of our work in our district's learning vision and learning system E4, and particularly we're going to be looking at the green bubble, our family and community engagement. And so the strategic goal, we always also ground our work in the strategic goal. All students will benefit from programs and services designed to inform and involve family and community partners. It's an important part of the work that we do, and it guides many of the decisions, programs, and services that we have across our district. And that embeds itself in our 4 district strategic goals. And just a brief moment about the structure of the work, and that is, this is the same structural approach we took, that we've taken when we opened up the Office of Educational Equity, and we'll be providing the board an update on that in the coming months in terms of the progress. But the same approach, looking at a board policy and then also a framework. And by a framework, that means if we back up just for a second to family and community engagement, it means what lives behind there. Family and community engagement can mean a million things to a million people. And Lisa, in just a second, will be walking you through that framework, and the board's had some exposure to that, but we'll be continuing to come back to that. And, well, there it is right there. I jumped one slide ahead. And also the work of the development of the strategic plan, and that's, we've been making tremendous progress with that. And Lisa will tell you the status of that. And this format has been very, very effective for us. Because as I mentioned before, what we didn't want to do is bring Lisa in, who's fabulous and has tremendous experience and expertise, but just cut her loose and say, well, go ahead and start developing programs. We wanted to make sure that we got her grounded, and we got grounded in the policy, a framework, and a strategic plan. But I'll say this, and that is when I was meeting with her early on, and if I get this incorrect, you can correct me, but what she very politely said as we were looking at this, and she said, but this doesn't mean that if there's specific work that we can do, that we have to wait until all this is done. And because she has some tremendous ideas, and we haven't necessarily put everything on hold. And she's going to show you that while we've adhered to this, there's also been very specific programs that we've also been implementing that are in alignment with this. So we're real excited to have Lisa come and share with you the work that's being done, and we'll also have some folks who are directly out in the field working directly with our families, and you'll hear from one of our families as well. So Lisa.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Hoffman, Ms. Avalos. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and provide an update on some of the work we're doing. Mr. Pierce, did you want to come back up since you're on a roll? Just kidding. Before I dive in, I do want to say thank you. It has been a privilege and honor to do this work. It's been a privilege and honor to be chosen to do this work, and I love working for a school district that believes in the importance of family and community engagement, so thank you. I also have to say thank you to the other half of my team. We are a small but mighty team of two, and she is here, Isha is in the back. She's my amazing assistant, and I could not do this work without her, so thank you. So just to briefly review, last year we presented the framework. The framework really grounds us in how we're going to create and do this work. And the inner bubbles are our foundational elements, and they really ground us in how we approach everything we do. They've helped with our strategic plan, and they've helped roll out programs that I will be telling you about in a few minutes. And then again, the phrasing around there supports the structure of it all. We want to make sure that we're communicating effectively and advocating for our students and working with our teachers and our classified staff in a way that helps our families. So last year, we created a steering committee, and we met, sometimes we met twice a month, but we definitely met on a monthly basis. And it was, we had about 42 people on that committee, and majority of them showed up every time. And one of the things we were tasked to do is to come up with a theory of action. And so this is what our FACE office believes in. Elk Grove Unified School District believes that family and community engagement is a fundamental component to student success and achievement. When district and school staffs build authentic relationships and encourage collaboration, it creates a culturally responsive mindset, which fosters trust and produces a welcoming environment. We will increase confidence in Elk Grove Unified School District by providing opportunities to partner with all families and the community in ways that support both the academic success and the social emotional wellness of every student. And I emphasize every, because that's what our office is about. We also had a few goals that we wanted to accomplish during the school year, 2016-2017 school year. Mr. Cerruti mentioned the idea of the strategic plan. That is pretty much come to fruition. We have a 3-year strategic plan that our steering committee helped us produce. Year 1, we are in right now, and if I go back to the framework, year 1 focuses on building relationships. Being a new office, being new to the district, not new as a parent in the district, but new to the district, working for the district, our office needed to build relationships. So our first year was all about learning about all of our departments, our schools, what our families' needs are. So building, trusting relationships, being willing to learn. Year 2, which will start in 2017-18, is going to focus on continuing to build relationships, because that should never end, but also providing collaborative ideas and work with various departments and schools, and then developmental. We want to make sure that we provide opportunities for all of our Elk Grove Unified employees, as well as our parents, to grow, to be able to develop as we all should. And then year 3, we'll dive into making sure that our work is interactive, two-way, that we have an active family and community, hopefully a family and community engagement committee, and that it's linked to learning. Our families really want to be able to help their children at home, and that is our #1 goal, is to help kids succeed. So we have been very fortunate to, Mr. Cerruti was right, that I'm not one to sit at my desk, especially if I get the opportunity to work with families, the community, and our amazing employees. So we have started some professional development opportunities, which I will speak about in just a minute. I have been very fortunate to get out to almost every school site. So we're supporting our schools and the community. And then we've been able to start some different initiatives, which I will also dive into. Okay, so if you will allow me, I'm going to highlight some of these. I'm very proud of this list. It is a big list, but I would like to just pull out a couple. So one of our accomplishments this year was I was honored to be asked to present 2 workshops of the Power of One conference. And so both rooms were packed. I have learned that teachers and our classified staff are hungry for this information. They want to work with our families. So we did 2 different workshops. One on providing teachers tips on how to engage their families and better communicate. And then we did a workshop on creating welcoming environments. If you ever get the opportunity to go out to Isabel Jackson or Sierra Enterprise, you will see some of that work in action. Isabel Jackson's office staff took on this idea of creating a welcoming environment. And when you step foot on their campus, you will see in the front office, hello, or welcome to our school, in every language that a child speaks. If you go to Sierra Enterprise, you will see a binder that's called Common Questions. We are piloting this binder. It is a list of, we interviewed the office staff and the principal and said, what are some questions that families come to you and ask? And we wanted to translate those questions into the top 4 languages. So when families came, there's the English version, and then there's Hmong or Russian or Spanish, the top 4 languages, and all of those questions in those languages. So at least it gives families the opportunity to be heard. Is it a perfect solution? No, we have a long ways to go, but we want our families to feel welcome and comfortable in the front office and at the school. So it's a step. So far we've received really good feedback, and we're hoping to grow that with other schools as well. BITSA workshops. Unfortunately, majority of higher ed, when you go and get your teaching credential, most of our teachers do not receive a course or a class on how to engage their families. We are in a very diverse community, and this is not okay. So I met with CPL and Jody, who oversees the BITSA program, and she invited me to present to the BITSA teachers. And so I did some workshops on just the basic tips. I know I was a first-year teacher. It's a long time ago. But I know what it's like to be overwhelmed. And so I wanted to present to them some simple strategies that they could use in the classroom to communicate better with their families. I'd like to highlight our work with ELS and the BTAs. We are training. We have set up a program where we are training all of the BTAs. We are giving them an idea or a strategy to go back and try at their school. They'll have a month to do that, and then they come back and report how did that interaction go with your families? What happened? What did you learn from it? And we'll then provide some other strategies. Because oftentimes our BTAs are the ones that are the first ones to communicate with the family, especially if they don't speak English. We're also working with the after-school program, the APCs. There are times when a teacher will never see a family. But the after school, the APC will, especially in an elementary. They have to come and sign out their child at the end of the day. So why not provide an APC with strategies on how to make sure that their families' needs are being met and to engage with their families. So we're also providing professional development for them. We've been working with PBIS and with the Youth Development Office. We were asked by a mom's group in Rancho Marietta to come out and provide them some strategies on how to either A, if their kid's being bullied, how do they help their child with that? Or B, if their kid is the bully, how do they help their child to not be the bully? It was a packed house, and youth development, someone from youth development, and I went out and simply presented some ideas and strategies and then took their questions. And they encouraged this to happen more often in various communities. And then last, I want to highlight my work, not mine, but the FACE office work with the communications department. Our families, one of the #1 requests from our surveys from families was they wanted more one-to-one communication, they wanted more timely communication, they wanted, they didn't want to always have the robocall. So one of the things we found out, we had student services and the MHTs were offering these phenomenal parent workshops, but they were all being signed up by staff. There weren't many parents showing up. So Zombie and I started working on the community connection, which if you have a child in our district and you registered and you gave us an email, you now will receive the community connection. Comes out once a month, and we put in there anything that's happening in Elk Grove Unified that parents might want to know about. I always know when it goes out because my phone buzzes off the hook over the weekend, because in there we have opportunities for parents to sign up for classes, and they are signing up constantly, which is very exciting. I don't mind my phone ringing off the hook. It alerts me anytime they sign up. So those are just a few of our accomplishments. There's a couple more that I want to dive a little deeper into. So again, I had, and I keep using the word privilege because I really feel like it is, the opportunity to go out to almost every school so far and sit down and interview the principal. And one of the things that constantly came up, and it didn't matter what region I was in, but constantly came up, was they wanted our office to provide them with new opportunities and ideas on how to reach families that didn't always show up. Oftentimes we see the same families over and over again. And so they wanted to provide teachers training to really understand and get to know where their where their students were coming from. Also, we surveyed teachers, and 78% of our teachers that we surveyed in our district have never received professional development on family engagement. Finally, we surveyed our families. They also said, as I mentioned earlier, they wanted more one-to-one communication. So I think many of you know my background. If you don't, I used to be the associate director of the national nonprofit, the Parent Teacher Home Visit Project. I worked for that organization for 6 years. I also was a teacher that went out and did lots of home visits in the Meadowview area where I used to teach. I knew that this would be an answer, not the only answer, but an answer to what our teachers, what our classified staff, what our families, and what our principals were asking. So I'm a big believer in the adage, before they come to you, you must go to them. Teacher outreach, communication is an excellent way to build relationships. And in order to outreach, for this to be successful, we must value, one, the teacher's time, and the other, the family's time. As a parent of two, and as a teacher, I never really had any say when back to school night was, or I never had any say when open house was. So we wanted to provide something that would give the families some say, some voice, and when they got to meet with their teachers. The biggest challenge at the same time is our teachers are busy. They work really, really hard, and they often have many things that they're doing. So I had to think about, before I brought something to our school district, I wanted to make sure that it fit their needs. So this idea is supported by the National Union, NEA, supported by AFT, is supported by EGA, CTA. So I knew this would, our unions would be open to this. So here's a little bit about the model. It's voluntary. So when we do the training, we encourage teachers and classified staff to go to the training, but it's voluntary to do the visits. We will never mandate that a teacher goes and visits a family. I don't want a teacher in my home that doesn't want to be there, and we don't want our families to ever feel that way either. Also, it's voluntary for the families. They can say no. Absolutely, that is fine. You always call ahead and set up the visit. We train teachers and classified staff how to do this, and they are compensated to do this because it's outside of their contracted hours. The training itself is 3 hours long. We always have a teacher who's doing the work. We have a parent who speaks to the impact that it had on he or she when they received a home visit, and then there's the facilitator. They never evaluate. Well, in the evaluations, they always talk about how the stories, and the teacher and the parent moved them. They never talk about the facilitator, but that's okay. I get it. Then they go in pairs. The model is you always, always go in pairs, and it's always set up in advance. We ask that our employees do not target. We don't want this to turn into something that our teachers are going out and visiting all the kids that failed, or all the kids that were suspended, or all the kids that were chronically absent, because our families do talk, and that will become a negative visit. And this is completely 100% positive. During the visit, during the training, we train the teachers and staff, classified staff, on how to conduct the visit. During the visit, they don't bring paperwork. They talk about interests. They learn about the family's experience in education. They do a lot of listening. Oftentimes when they come to us, we dump information on them. And this is now our turn to listen to who our families are and where they come from. We exchange expectations. We ask the parents, whoever the child lives with, do you have an expectation of us? What can I do to make sure your child has a successful year? And then they discuss hopes and dreams and goals. What is your hope and dream for your child? And then at the end, they invite them back. So we are hoping from this visit that they are able to invite them back to an event happening at the school. Our goal is to create that bridge. We want to build trust, and we want our families to come and work with us. So far, we have 22 schools participating, 17 title and 5 non-title. We've done 16 trainings. We've trained 390 staff, and that's across the board, from classified to certificated to administrators. All of the BTAs are being trained. And that is wrong. It says 187. I looked this morning, and we've done 192 home visits. We are, of course, collecting data on this. I don't ever roll out something unless I know how I'm going to evaluate it, and that is how our office will continue to grow. We are looking at right now, after they go out and do the visit, the teachers come back and they reflect together, they debrief, and then we ask them to fill out a Google form, and on that form we're asking for them to give us the student ID number, because longitudinal, I'd like to see that attendance has improved, because national research shows that it does. I'd like to see that discipline has decreased. Again, national research has shown that it will. So we have to have the student ID to find that out. We are hoping, well, I've already seen it, a mindset change. Assumptions are changed, what they thought they knew about a family, and now what they really know. We have seen, and we're hoping to continue to see, teacher efficacy and teacher practice change. We ask the question, what did you learn on the visit, and how are you going to bring that back into your classroom and differentiate your instruction based on what you learned? I cannot tell you how incredible. Whenever I need a pick-me-up, I go and read the Google Forms. They are so uplifting, and I was honored to be a part of debriefs over the past couple of months, hearing from our employees about how this model is working for them. Not one teacher, not one classified staff had a negative experience. And so many people said things like, there's not one day that doesn't go by that I don't use on what I learned on that home visit back in my classroom. A teacher at Samuel Kennedy told me that this child was constantly truant and has not been truant for the rest of the year. This is something that works. It helps us to get outside of our box, have a different type of mindset. I could speak about this for a long time, but I would really like you to hear from the people that are doing the work. So I'm going to call up the principal from Charles Mack, Mr. Field Ridley. His school was trained this year, and they have conducted so far 63 home visits. So I'm going to let him speak about the impact that it's had on his teachers and school.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to the board. Good evening, Mr. Hoffman. So when I was preparing for this, I had it all written out, and I had first time speaking in front of everybody, so I couldn't figure out exactly how I wanted to share this information for you. And as I've been sitting here, I was thinking about how I deliver information to my staff, or how we go about making decisions. And I know that when I feel passionate about something, or there's something I really want to convey to them, it's better that I just talk. So I'll start with a little story, tell them about what it is we're doing, and then end with a little story. So I figured that was the best way to go about this. The story I start with is me when I was a third grader. And I had a teacher, Miss Butler, who ended up coming to my house to visit us right after my mom's divorce officially went through. And I remember her meeting with me before she came over and saying, yeah, I'm coming to your house tonight. to meet with you and your mother. And I said, me and my mother? She said, yeah, you and your mother, which is different than my mother and you. And, you know, to an 8-year-old, that's a big distinction. And so I remember that until this day. And now Miss Butler was a disciplinarian. She's no joke. But to this day, I still remember her as one of the most impactful and positive people in my life. And a lot of it had to do with the relationship she built with kids at school, but even more so, her coming to our house. She ended up coming twice through times that were a little bit more difficult and then times where it was a little bit better. So that's just kind of, you know, to give you a backdrop to what home visits can do for a child. At our school, you know, we've made a big push, and in my infinite wisdom of 2 years now at Charles Mack, we've made a really big push around the equity and what that means to us and how we're going to make that a big part of what we do at our school. We've also made a huge push around parent engagement and parent involvement. We've seen the numbers of parents that participate in the things that we do at Charles Mack, just enormous growth. We look to this, and you know, the data that Lisa just shared, as one of those, part of the impetus behind that. You know, we have some other pieces, but this here, where we have our whole staff, or almost our whole staff is trained. All of our administrators are trained. She talked about the academic program coordinators with the after-school programs. All of our after-school program teachers are trained. We've bought in. We believe in this, and this is something that we talk about, we share. And, you know, and Lisa also talked about the mindset. What we found is that the biggest challenge to this, you know, we can go through all the things that we want to do. We've figured out how to contact families, how to engage families. We're going out to visit the homes. But what we're finding, too, is how this impacts the way teachers are looking at families and the discussions that we are now having at our school, which is changing a mindset. You know, how do you get a collective understanding of what equitable practices are, and how do we bring our families into making those things happen? And we're now having those discussions. One of the things, too, that when we think about the results that have come from this, we've had increased involvement again in our parent engagement. And, you know, another thing that I also share with my staff is there's always the data piece. We always look to John Hattie's work anytime we can. And one of the things that John Hattie talks about is the impact that environment and that socioeconomics can have on student learning, and that it can impact a year's growth. Well, conversely, what can happen is that with efficacious parent involvement and with positive student relationships that are built, we can impact 2 years of growth. So if we're looking at 1 year of growth with these socioeconomic and environmental things, and then what 2 years of growth comes from the work that we can do through programs like this, my staff, between that and my stories, has bought in. And so what I want to share with you now is one other story, and this is about a teacher of ours who got involved in this project. And so she was trained in August, which was the first wave of my teachers that got trained. And what she did, there's a student that she and mother, single mom, she connected with this mom, had been out there twice by September. In September, she helped the mom write her resume. So at the time, she was unemployed, and so what happened, she helped her write her resume. About a month and a half later, she got her job as a medical technician with Kaiser. Just 2 weeks ago, she got her first home. And so she shared these pictures, shared this story with Miss Singer. I walk into the room, there's 2 teachers crying, and the mom is crying, and they're all, I mean, it was one of those moments where you start to see, one, the impact that we have is, you know, goes beyond the walls of our school, but also the impact that a program like this can have, where building those relationships, you know, just the impact that has. So I don't know that if I was here to advocate for the program or to talk about the program, but I am an advocate for it, and it has been a great thing for our school. And as I look to what it will mean in the future, when I look to what the data says, how this can impact students and impact kids, I expect it will continue to impact our kids at Mack also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ridley.
So I'd like to introduce some teachers, a teacher and a counselor that are actually have been trained and are going out and doing this work. They're both from John Reith Elementary, and that school has conducted 31 home visits. I'm going to invite up 6th grade teacher Bernadette Best Green and counselor Chanetta Briggs to share their experience.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Chanetta Briggs, and I'm the elementary school counselor. Elk Grove does have elementary school counselors. There's 5 of us. I split between 2 schools. I'm at John Reith, and I'm at Samuel Kennedy. And so Lisa asked that I want to share something, and anytime Lisa asks me to share about the parent home visit training project, I'm so encouraged because I love this project. I 100% believe in this project. So let me give you, I've gone on to a lot of visits with Bernadette, and I hope I'm not sharing any of her things, but one of the things that I do is I'm trying to encourage both of my sites to go on the home visits. As a counselor, I am thrilled when I come back from the home visit. I don't know if I can explain the feeling that you get inside your heart when you go meet with the family. When you first get there, they're so rigid, and they don't really know what you want. They think that you want to see what their house looks like. They think that you want to see what their environment is like. And when they find out, all we really want to know is about your child, about your students. Tell us your hopes and dreams. Tell us what you want from us. What can we do to assist you? And by the time you finish with that home visit, I mean, we're hugging, we're laughing. I just think it's an awesome opportunity for teachers or any staff member to connect with their student. One of the things that I like that Bernadette does, and I don't know if she's going to share this in hers, and I share this with my other side, is sometimes teachers will say, well, we have a hard time getting a parent to say yes, that we'll come, that we can come to their home. So what Bernadette has done is she has kind of connected with her students' parents that she already has a good relationship with, right? And she starts with them. And so what she does is she has those kids come back to her classroom, and they stand up and tell about their experience. So then what happens? All the other kids want, are you coming to my house? Are you coming to my house, right? So now everyone in her classroom wants the students, wants Bernadette to come to their home. So it's not like children think they're being singled out. They want to come, because now they want to come back to school and share their stories. My school, Kennedy, we're having a really, really hard time. And so what some of the teachers who really want to do this project is that Kennedy has a lot of apartment complexes that feed into our school. So what we're doing this summer is that we're going to do a meet, greet, and eat. And we're going to go to their community centers and their apartment complexes, and we're just going to introduce ourselves. And then from that, we're hoping that they'll see that, you know, we're not just calling to be nosy. We're calling because we want to connect. And when you go out to the homes and you connect with these families, I think that it allows teachers to be able to teach by equity, because now we see what the family life is like. We see that there's a multi-generational family there. We meet the grandparents, we meet the siblings of our students. And I think that makes a tremendous impact on the education of the student, because when that student thinks that their teacher cares about them, what are they going to do? They're going to come to school and they're going to try to do their best. When they think that we care about them more than academics, that we want to know what they are really thinking, of course they want to come and do well for us, because they know we know their family, right? They know we have met their grandma, or we've met their uncle. We know you now, so they want to do well for us, right? And so I just think that I want to encourage like all of our teachers and all of the staff and whoever wants to do it. I encourage you guys, if you ever want to come out with one of us to see what the home visit is like, most definitely please come and join us. What I hear from some teachers or educators is that, oh, I've been doing home visits for years, but this is different. We go in there, we don't bring pen and paper, we don't talk about academics, we don't, you know, talk about things that, well, Johnny didn't do this at school, or Johnny got an A on his test, or Johnny got a C on his test. We're not talking about things like that. That's not what this visit is about. This visit is to basically learn about your student, to let you know that we care. And so when I go out, I'm usually the second person because it's usually with the teacher. I've gone out with 6th grade teachers, 5th grade teachers, kindergarten teachers. I think I just haven't done 1st and 4th grade. And so my spiel when I go to them, and I actually picked this up from Isha, who's sitting back there, is that I tell them that the reason why there's 2 of us is because that gives you the opportunity to have 2 people to connect with. Not only are you connecting with your child's teacher, but there's someone else on the campus that also has met your child on an intimate basis. So if you ever want to call up to the school, you can also call me. And for me as a counselor, because I split between 2 schools, I'm only at each school 2.5 days. So most of the time I only see our frequent flyers. I see our most needed children. I see our at-risk children. So a lot of the students think that I'm only there for those students. So when I get to go out to meet other students with our teachers, now the family knows there's a counselor at the elementary school level. Now the students know that I see all students, not just our frequent flyers. So now when I walk on campus, I see the Miss Briggs. Did you hear about me? I'm going to do my, my ceremony dance. Like one time we went to a family who was Tongan, and we got to learn about their ceremony dance. And so now this student wants to share that with me, which is something that probably wouldn't happen. So I think that's all. I think that's all I want to say. But I just want to say that I really love the project. I totally believe in it. And anytime Lisa's going to ask me to speak, I always show up because I just think it's worthy. All right.
Thank you, Ms. Briggs.
Hello, my name is Bernadette Bestgreen, and I currently teach 6th grade at Reed. And I was asked to share a very brief message about why I believe home visits are important. Following my training this spring, I invited all of our families from my classroom to participate in home visits, 25 families. 40% of my class, 10 students, scheduled appointments. Well, no, more than 40 scheduled appointments, but 40 kept appointments. People have real life things that come up, and so there were more appointments that were scheduled that for whatever reason we would be ready to go and something came up, and so then we would offer to reschedule, but 10 kept appointments, 10 students, and then each home visit had multiple people. Some had 5 or 6 relatives. Parents wanted to have, the collection of folks who support the child in the room so that we could see who's behind that child, and also so that they could all share their feedback about what their hopes and dreams were. Parents invited us to meet with them in their homes and at public venues such as the library and local restaurants. The focus of our spring home visits was to allow us the opportunity to listen and learn as families spoke about their hopes and dreams and future aspirations for their children. And what I loved about the home visits that I did with Chinetta was she always reinforced not just academics. You may have aspirations for your child that extend beyond our purview as educators, and so we want to know what you think is important. And I really love that collaboration with Chinetta because she brings a perspective that I'm not formally trained in, and so I think that we did a really good tag teaming. And whenever I did visits when she wasn't present, I tried to channel her and echo some of the comments that she would routinely do. So thank you again. From my perspective as a teacher of ethnically and culturally diverse youth, I always look for opportunities to learn from and with the parents and the families. By deepening my own insights about what's important to parents and families, I know that I'm better able to align those priorities with the academic and social skills that those academic and social objectives that we privilege at school. So I talk and write a great deal about collaboration between the classroom and the living room. However, what I've been saying in my reflections is that since beginning to conduct home visits under this model, I've really come to understand that even more deeply, that concept of collaborating between the classroom and the living room. It's taken new meaning for me. Given the time of year that we started, our training was in the spring, or I attended the training in the spring. So at that point of the year, I know my students very well, know my families, many of them very well. They had chaperoned field trips, they had volunteered in the classroom. So I felt like going in, the people who invited me were people who were already comfortable and felt that I was an advocate for their child. And as Chinetta said, every time a student came back and spoke before the class, more and more students were like, my mom said yes, okay, when can you come, when can you come? And so it was a great thing to have students promote the program. But it was really like the metaphor of an iceberg. As much as I thought I knew about this magnificent iceberg, above the water, that home visit allowed me to peer beneath the surface. And when I saw beneath the surface, I thought, this explains so much, and I never would have known that. And I really thought I knew you well, and wow, this is really incredible. And ooh, I understand that. And so this is a different approach that we might take given what I'm learning about what's going on, the family dynamics. And it was really difficult too, because families got very vulnerable with us and shared a lot of personal information with us, and pain. We definitely saw the celebration and the joy, but it's difficult when people are talking to you about their pain. And so I had to be very thoughtful and respectful to families in the way that I did the reflections, so that I would report information that was meaningful for our office to record, but also to honor, you know, people's real lives. And so I will just say that I was very impressed to discover how conducting home visits made a difference, because I've been doing home visits for a really long time, new with this model. And so I think that this model is doing something special that I hadn't seen happen before. That whole idea about, I don't have an agenda other than to be on Team Crystal or Team Bobby. There's no pencil, there's no paper, no laptop. I'm sitting on your couch and I just want you. And so what would happen is we'd ask the question, what are your hopes and dreams for your child? And they'd kind of give us a safe answer and then wait for us to come in with the agenda. And then we'd say, okay, well, so what do you want to talk about? Well, you know what we're doing in class. Are there any things you have questions? I mean, one by one, they'd always be like, okay, so you really just want me to tell you what I care about? Like, they were polite, but it was almost like they were expecting us to have a hidden agenda. And so it was very rewarding to see people get comfortable, open up, share with us. And what Janetta says is exactly my observation as well. Students became much more engaged. Parents who were already involved became much more engaged in the classroom, calling or emailing or text messaging me about what was going on, making sure that that form made its way back to class. So I really see the difference that students and parents experience from my perspective as a teacher. And I'm actually excited to hear from the parent here to see if I learned some new stuff. But in closing, I will say, while there's so much I could share about this worthwhile and important work, it occurs to me that the best way for you to wrap your minds around the potential and promise of sitting down and listening to and learning from families that we serve is to join us on upcoming home visits. So with that, I will extend the invitation to any of you who are interested, and thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Okay. Finally, I would like to call up Liz Delgado. She is a parent from John Earhart Elementary, a parent, I believe, of 3 children. I could be wrong. 3, right? 3 boys. And she's just being accompanied by her principal, Billy Eidlet, and the teacher that actually did the home visit, Miss Lanzarada.
Good to see you, Liz.
Good evening, and thank you so much for inviting me this night.
Can you get a little closer to the microphone? Just a little closer.
Okay. So it is such an honor that I am talking to all of you at this moment. I am Elizabeth Sanchez, a mother of 3 boys. All my kids have attended John Earhart. 2 of them have already promoted, and the little one, Raul, is going to be a 2nd grader. Let me start with my experience. One day, I was at my office, and all of a sudden, my phone starts to ring. I look at the number, but it was blocked. Yet, I had a feeling that it was an important call, so I answered it. I heard a familiar voice. It was Mrs. Lanzarada, Raul's teachers, and I really got scared. My heart began to beat harder because I thought that she was calling to tell me that Raul had done something wrong at school and that he was in trouble. She told me that she wanted to do a home visit. And you know, I say yes, but I thought, a home visit? That got me thinking maybe he wasn't in trouble, but instead he wasn't doing good in the classroom. That was even worse to me. Mrs. Lanzarada explained it to me that she just wanted to know more about Raul and our family. Even after that, I was still worried about the visit. This was the first time that a teacher had come to our house. She said that Mrs. Chen was going to join her too, and we already know Mrs. Chen, so I was like kind of feel more comfortable. After all the worries and the confusion, we finally set up the date. That night, I got home, and the first thing that I told my family was about the call. Like me, my husband was also surprised that Raul's teachers want to come to visit our house. But Raul was so excited that Mrs. Lancerata and Mrs. Chen will be coming to our house. The next day, Raul told all of his friends that Mrs. Lancerata was going to go to our house. And I was like really mad at him because he was like, Raul, don't tell anybody, but he did it. Okay, so finally the day came. Raul helped me to prepare them a treat, which is Raul's favorite snack to eat, a fruit salad. I got the kids ready, you know, I get them dressed up and everything was clean and set up. After a while of waiting, the teachers finally arrived. Wow, Raul was so happy to see Mrs. Lancerata and Mrs. Chen. We had a nice, long conversation about Raul and our family. After a while of talking, Raul decided to give the teachers a house tour. It was a great experience. This was amazing because we got to know the teachers a little better than we did, and after that, I felt that we were more connected with her. I felt closer to her, like if she was part of my family. The next day, Raul told the entire class about the experience. Mrs. Lancerata came to my room. Mrs. Lancerata met our dog Lola, and all the kids were waiting for that special day that Mrs. Lancerata came and visited them. So that visit made Raul feel that he was very important to Mrs. Lancerata and that she cared for him. I felt that the home visit was made Raul more confident, and he is like more connected to her. Raul, he's always very close to her. He always say, I love Mrs. Lancerata. Yeah. He always speaks like, oh my God, I want to be like a good reader at Mrs. Lancerata. I need to read more because I want that he feels more proud of me. So I want to say thank you to Mrs. Lancerata because she spent time with us, and also to Mr. Allen because of school that we have and the way he managed it. And also, I want to say thank you to the opportunity to the program that gave us to be involved in this. And I really hope that more families can have this great experience. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
So those were just a few stories. I could tell you 192. I won't. I will say that this work is also happening. I know we had an elementary focus. This work is also happening in the secondary schools. We have 5 secondary schools, 4 Title I and 1 non-title who have been trained and are doing this work. In fact, I'm not going to read you this long story, but one of the teachers and the new vice principal, thank you, from Albiani, went out on a home visit earlier in the year with a child who was constantly getting suspended. And they sent me this incredible story about how angry the family was and how after the visit they were hugging, and how the family's approach with the school changed, and how the child was getting D's and F's. Grades improved. The child started smiling, developed a voice in class, and did not have 1 suspension after the visit. So it's great work, and it works for everyone. So thank you for listening to their stories and for letting us do this program in our school district. I want to share with you just a few other things, and then I will take questions or comments. Besides home visit work, we are doing other things. Even though I feel like this is one of the most impactful strategies that I've ever participated in my career as an educator. Another result from our surveys that our families were asking us had to do with helping their children at home. Many of our families did not grow up in the U.S., did not have Common Core, did not, or had a bad experience in education and don't understand the system. But they really believe in helping their children, and they wanted to learn how. So I had several schools who were willing to send out surveys to find out, how can we help you this year? Instead of saying, this is what we're going to do, they instead asked them. So these strategies, these nights, came from that. We have an incredible amount of coaches that are doing some great work in CPL and on grade level reading, and we started partnering with them. And family writing nights came from that. And what family writing nights are is an opportunity for families to come out and write with their child. We wanted them to have a fun event where they could learn how to help their child with writing at home. So we did 12 different events. One happened in every region. I know we have more than, don't have 12 regions. Isha and I have a hard time saying no. When schools started finding out about this event, they asked if they could participate. So we did 12 nights throughout the year, 11 different schools. Carroll Elementary hosted 2. And we read a book. And during that book, we taught the families how to do a read aloud. And the book was about this little boy who lived next to a senior citizen home, and the senior didn't have her memory. And he wanted to know what memory was. And so we taught the woman what memory is. So then the families participated in creating a book. And they made a memory book. And there were several pages, various memories. It was really great. You'll see 2 of the pictures up there. That's the one on the right is a finished product. They would bind the book afterwards. And then the other is a great caption of this picture, this visualization of how families would divide up the pages. I saw single dads bring kids. I saw single moms, grandmothers, families, kids that went home to mom and dad. An extremely diverse community, all come out and have fun and participate in these events. We had over 1,400 families attend. I was lucky, as a parent, it came to my kids' school, and I got to be on the other end. And my son was so proud of this work, we have it on our coffee table still to this day. When the families left, we gave them a magnet, 2 magnets. One that provided them with all sorts of ideas on how to help their child write. They were all free, different opportunities, different ideas. And then we gave them another magnet that gave them 40 different ideas to write about. Our goal was to get our kids writing, and we didn't want our families to have to pay for anything. This was a free event. Many of the schools provided something to eat or dessert, but we supported them in all of that. Then, another opportunity that came from our surveys, there's a really great counselor at Laguna Creek who was seeing parents come to her campus struggling with how to raise their teenager. Now, if you have teenagers or you've raised teenagers, you know it can be difficult at times, to say the least. So she wanted to offer a series of workshops of how to actively parent teens. And so we supported her in that work. She had over 120 parents come. It was a 6-week series. It was free. They were given a book. They were fed. And we offered childcare and translation if needed. We wanted there to be no barriers in the way for our families. Our hope is to spread that. This was happened at Laguna Creek. We know it might be difficult for some of our families to get to Laguna Creek, so we're hoping to spread that to other locations in the future. Finally, the other event that we facilitated, co-hosted with some schools, many of our principals reported that they're struggling with social media, especially in the secondary world, although you'd be surprised elementary too. A lot of bullying takes place in social media and then spills over to the school the next day or over the weekend, and then they come to school on Monday and there's a problem. So we knew that our families needed help in this, and we were trying to figure out the best way to approach this. So I was able to go preview a documentary called Screenagers, which is a documentary that was done by a mother and doctor up in Seattle area. And she was concerned about the time her child was spending with a screen. And she started doing the research. Anyway, she created this incredible documentary that's about an hour long that covers all sorts of things when it comes to social media. So Consumnes Oaks, Harriet Eddy, Folks Ranch all agreed. They all wanted to show this. So they all hosted nights. And then I asked them to provide families the opportunity to discuss it afterwards. And for example, at Folks Ranch, we brought the Youth Development Office out, and the 5th and 6th graders went with the Youth Development Office to talk about their thoughts on the documentary and questions they had. And then the principal and I stayed with the parents and talked about their feelings on it. And families were telling us that they really appreciated this and they wanted more. They said it's really hard, we didn't grow up with this kind of, with cell phones and social media. We don't know how to navigate this. I felt very alone, and it's so nice to know that other people are having these struggles too. Thank you for providing us the opportunity to dialogue about this. They walked away with several informational handouts that we made very family friendly on different apps that your kids might be downloading and what that is, and just used Kathleen Watt, who was honored earlier tonight. She and I and Gail Dessler sat down and strategized with Common Sense Media on how we could make this approachable for families so they could digest it and bring it back and start to have conversations with their own children. From the surveys, from all of these events, I'm really proud to say that they were extremely positive. They want more. That's great, because we want them to want more. So, what are we going to do in the future? I think we accomplished a lot in 2016 and 17. In fact, many people have said, have been very complimentary on how much we've been able to do in such a short time. I think we've just scratched the surface. This is a massive district. We're going to have 67 schools next year. We have over 37,000 families. We have just begun this work. I think that there is much to do, and I am very excited about the opportunities. We want to continue to grow professional development opportunities for all of our employees, not just our teachers, all of our employees. We want to continue building relationships. I think that I haven't had enough opportunity to go out and get to know our community partners. I really want to bring them in. We're in 3 different big cities. I should know the City Council. I should know the Chamber of Commerce. We want to continue to support schools. We want to expand the home visit program. I know there's new title schools coming on board. We want to make sure that the opportunity is there for everyone. We know some of our families will never get to our schools. So how can we get resources and toolkits to them? So we want to create that. We want to make sure that we put that on our website and put those out in the community connection. We want to make sure they're translated. We want our families to actually be able to access the material and read it. And then we really want to work on making sure that we create welcoming schools. I think this banner to my right is a perfect example of a start. I'm really thrilled that it says families and communities on there, because I agree. We are partners, families, schools, and communities. And we will continue to evaluate everything we do, and we will continue to update you. So I thank you for listening to us. I know that it was a long presentation, but I really appreciate your patience. So thank you.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. I'm sure we'll have some questions, comments. I'll start with Ms. Singh-Allen.
Thank you. First and foremost, thank you for that amazing presentation. I truly do feel blessed to have you with EGUSD. I know that you came from our neighboring school district. But before I go on to, a lot of my questions and comments, I do want to recognize where I actually was first introduced to this was from the principal back there from Earhart, from Mr. Billy Eilert. When you first started, over 3 years ago, before we actually had this office. The first time, before I think maybe the majority of the board that we have here today was part of our district. Part of my visits to the school sites, when you had come from Sac City, you shared this wonderful program, the Parent-Teacher Home Visitation Program. I was sold that day. I was so excited, like, what can we do? How do we make this happen? And of course, it's not me, it's we, and and there's steps that need to happen. So we were invited from Sac City to participate in a presentation, and I didn't want the presentation. I was going to go as a board member and was very excited about it, but I wanted to make sure that we had other stakeholders present too, so we could hear their information at the same time, and then become advocates collaboratively. And so I invited EGEA, and at the time it was Ms. Ellis was the president. And so we got this wonderful information, and from parents like yourself, I'm in the back, there were so many other parents sharing those testimonials that were so powerful that we were sold. We wanted this amazing program. So we, you know, and like all great programs, it starts from somewhere. So I do want to recognize Mr. Eidlet. At least for me, you were that first introduction into something this wonderful. And thank you for that. It's very exciting that we do have this office in our district. And, you know, I attended CSBA presentation in the winter, and one of the workshops I attended was on this subject matter. And you, Lisa, could have conducted this. And I invite you for future conferences to perhaps submit a presentation, because I just really felt that we were so far ahead. Even as a new office within our district, we were still much farther ahead than some of our other neighboring school districts and other districts statewide, just because of your great understanding from your background, your respective background, and then connecting all of the dots. It's been tremendous. So again, I do invite you to participate in that, and we'll share that information along with you of the timing. So it's too late for this year, but for next year, definitely. It is encouraging to see some of the statistics trend in our favor in the sense of reduced discipline issues and then increased attendance issues. I think that's monumental, because now we truly have an opportunity to teach the whole child. It's not just a kid that walks through that classroom and to that school campus. It gives that broad understanding that some of the teachers spoke about. And then our principal, you're an amazing advocate because you benefited so long ago from that. And you know, these testimonials are so important because every program requires funding. And so I want every one of us to remember what we heard and not lose sight of that. Because as we want to grow, everything costs money. And the value of this is one of the reasons why I'm on the board. Because as a parent voice, I wanted to be an advocate for parents, and not just students, but parents. What you do is so very important. And so I don't, you know, and a lot of work we do is very important, but this particular program is something that I'm very passionate about. You know, I do think that there are areas that I'm more than happy to share some additional resources when it comes to social media. There's a local nonprofit that actually is going around to different school districts and teaching social media responsibility. It's called Above the Fray. I know they're doing it in Natomas, and we've actually done it here at Sheldon. I went to one of the presentations a few years ago at the library. It's not only for parents, but it's also for students. So because the dialogue is very different for both of them. But that's an additional resource, because I think I'm not even sure what the cost is. I don't think it's very much, if anything. It's just great information that we can share with our parents and our children. Let's see, any other questions I had? I don't think so. I think that is it. Now, you know, given the times that we live in and the importance of, you know, the campaign that we did launch here, I imagine a lot of these visits being very personal and sharing those stories. And always know that they're, you know, please also know that you can share resources. And I'm sure that you do, and I don't want to get into those specific personal conversations, but, you know, given, you know, immigration issues are sensitive in a lot of schools, particularly at Sac City, and I'm sure it's not unique to them. And I know that those are issues that perhaps those home visitation would be more obvious. It's not maybe something that you would see necessarily at school, but during those very personal visits where you are able to get a better understanding, and with that dialogue that you have with the families, that there are so many resources available. And I see your hand raised. Is it a question for me, or? Yeah. There you go. Yep. Yes. I would agree, and I think that was one of the concerns that when initially when we had the discussions of this program, that there would be some concerns like that well before ICE raids and things like that that we're reading about, that is something of concern. But again, that's not our role. We're here to educate. And so the more that we get to know our children, the more we understand where they come from, to address those equity issues, it truly goes to educating the whole child. So you have a huge advocate here. I imagine we're all a strong advocate, but I love this program. Thank you so much for what you do.
Definitely, I'd like to echo those comments in regards to the fact that, for me, it brings it home, that relational approach, that connection to the community and to our families is so critical and so important. And again, that's the purpose and why I'm here. You know, it relates back to being a board member and really the representation of what that means. I could relate to some of the stories shared about being in certain communities. I'm a product of living around Samuel Kennedy and attending James Redder and those neighborhoods. And for me, you know, I grew up in a single parent household, and at times when the school was asked to come out, it was kind of a, you know, a red light or red flag for the family. You know, well, why are they coming to visit? Are they here to judge us? Are they here to look at our home? You know, are they here, you know, to interrogate or investigate some more? And so for us, you know, in that community, sometimes you're hesitant. And so I could see that for the families, but how important that connection is to our families. You know, I have to wear my counselor hat too. We can dig deeper and we can find out those meaningful stories from the families, and that connection is so important and goes such a long ways, because to the families, now they have a familiar face. I know when I worked in Head Start preschool, we do home visits, but our home visits were more geared towards assessments and kind of giving a well-rounded picture of the child and their academics. And I'd like to see this introduced at the early levels, such as Head Start, and maybe this would be the first home visit segued into the later follow-up in academics and doing the assessments with the children and the family. I think that's so key. You brought up a lot of elements which I think are wonderful, and I think they're a true testament. Hearing all the people speak tonight, for me, was really moving to hear those stories and how important that is. You know, it's a true reminder and reflection of what we're here to do, and the purpose we're here is to serve the entire child, but also their family, not to forget those parents and how important those parents are in their own child's education. Parents, grandparents, whoever it is, that person that's there to support the entire child. And so I thank you for those stories, and I look forward to, you know, again, expanding in many ways and the growth that this potential program has. So thank you.
Mr. Perez, anything?
Yes, I have a lot to say.
You're gonna dance? Yeah, you need to be close to the mic or they won't hear you.
First of all, I support the program 100%. Why? Because I've been trying to get this since day one after Prop 30. Family community engagement, student engagement, parent engagement. You know, since day one after the Prop 30 legislation passed, you know, schools throughout the whole districts, throughout the whole California have been putting monies in this subject matter. And to this day, I'm not satisfied our board has put money and resources into this subject matter. Community engagement, student-parent engagement. It's number one priority for me. And unless we do this soon, at our schools, we will not be successful in our achievement gap, our prison pipeline gap, whatever that, health issues. When you go to that school, you're dealing with the whole family, which affects that student that goes to school. We know that kids today do not come to school because they have health issues, family health problems. They have come from communities that have their mental issues, mental health issues. There's violence in our community. There's deaths in our community where you grew up. We know that. And so these kids come to our schools, they have these problems, but they don't talk to nobody. It's changing, but not as fast as I want it to be. That's for sure. That's That's why we're here. That's why my fellow board members, that's why we're here. I'm pretty sure that that's our thing. But it's not happening fast enough. It's the budget from the state, the federal affects us here, and that's a problem that we have locally. We have it, but yet there's monies to spend. But where's the priority? That's when us as a board need to get, in focus and start doing our priorities and maybe changing it. But yes, your program is a model. I've seen it. It's like the enchilada approach. If you ever heard that expression before. You use a variety of the best of everything, and you put it together and you make it work. It tastes good, that enchilada. And so I've heard about your program. I've seen what you work in, and I know it works. But I'm wondering, okay, your title is what now? You're Lisa, what?
Program Administrator
For
for the
what?
Office of Family and Community Engagement.
Okay, now we have another program, which is the Equity Program. Why isn't that person here?
Because that's not on the agenda tonight.
But I mean, you said you work with them.
Well,
Did
actually,
they
this
have a-
program coordinates, Lisa's touched elementary ed, secondary ed, the Office of Equity, the PBIS program, ELS program, so there'd be a variety of folks, and that's the way all of our programs are completely interconnected.
Right, but so, I mean, I imagine you'd be partnershiping with them
And
on
that's
that,
what-
so
that's what
like, have they been successful? Or their objectives are very similar to yours. So I think internally, I think you need to touch bases or coordinate a little bit on that issue, because there is equity issues throughout our schools. I know that for a fact, but we don't want to talk about them. We need to talk about them. Okay. How much do you get in LCFF, LCAP funding for your position, your department?
Mr. Pettis, we're actually
See?
going to get a chance to talk about that very
So
shortly.
these are issues that we need to know, because like you say, hey, this is an excellent program. Yes, it's an excellent program. And then you're getting feedback from our parents that want this. They want this. And that's what the bottom line of Prop 30 is. They want feedback from our parents and students, what we need as educators and administrators and board members. How can we help them get their kids through K to 12 and onward?
Mr. Pettis, can I just ask you to wrap up in the interest of time?
Yes,
Or were
okay.
you done already?
Yes. Hey, listen, they had a lot of time. I expect the same amount of time, so.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm
don't
not
cut me,
hold-
please.
No, I'm not cutting you off. Just
Okay.
asking if you could wind up. It's almost 9. We have a lot left on the agenda.
Yes, exactly. We have a lot of students out there in the prison pipeline, so we have an exit program. I support you 100%. You mentioned, I mentioned the LCFF relationships. I think you need to get that in the LCAP of every school and get one person like these two teachers and counselors, and get more equity and diverse community staff. That's another issue that we have. We need diversity in our staffing, even at this district level, administration, and our schools, all the way to the, with these kids. So that's another thing. Okay, I agree with you that we need training on family engagement. That's what LCAP, and there's no reason why you should not have enough money to do that. Now, the issue that, we are paying teachers to go home and do home visits?
Yes.
Okay, how much of that is that going to cost us? Because that's the first time I ever heard that we are going to do that, and I support it. So I was wondering, something in the near future, in your next report, find out how much that cost is, because we need to put that in our budget and reflect that in our LCAP.
We know how much it costs, and it's part of the budget that's built in.
Yeah, it's part of the budget that we approved and the LCAP that we approved.
Okay, so once we have that data set, we need to visualize and see the fiscal impact. What we need to do throughout our districts within our low-income communities Title I programs. You mentioned we only have 4 Title I programs. I think every Title I program should have this program. I personally think that, and we should push that way, because all these low-income people, or not, or what do you call it, funded with LCAP funds.
Do you have another issue, sir?
Yes. Okay, so you answered one of my questions regarding how many Title I schools.
Well, just as a point of clarification, I believe you said 4 Title
yes,
schools?
you mentioned, yeah. Oh, the 4, so 4 secondary, how many middle school?
Middle schools are secondary.
Okay, high school. High school, okay, so how many, okay, does Rudder have one?
Yes.
Does the program?
Florin High School, James Rudder, Samuel Jackman, and Valley High School, and K. Albiani have all been trained. 4 of those are titled.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, we need to spread that out, okay.
I take offense at the targeting only low income because the idea is not to target everything.
Well, what I'm saying, LCFF, LCAP is targeted to low-income students, foster youth, and English language learners. And they have said in the past that those individual students, and that's the whole basis of the legislation, is to give them more money than they had when we had categorical programs.
Mr. Pettis,
So,
you don't need to shout.
okay, I'm trying to emphasize the point.
I appreciate your passion.
Okay, so yes, again, I think those individual schools should be prioritized. That's the whole basis of Prop 30. More money. We took away the categorical programs, but we need to give them more funding and services. You made me cry because I've seen that happening in other programs, and you need to come over here and make us cry more. Because I've seen that happen. It's a very powerful program, and I like the fact that you did that. And your model regarding it's a really low key. I like that. No computers, no paperwork, no SARB report, this and that, no immigration, ICE, and that's a big issue within our community. You've seen in the paper just recently, Latino communities will not seek food stamps. They will not seek WIC services. They will not seek services, and they fear government. They fear that it's going to affect their immigration status. So that's why they don't do that. That's the bottom line. But they're entitled to it, but yet it's a big issue within our community, the legislators, and et cetera, et cetera. You mentioned what do parents want? That's the bottom line. You asked that of them. I'm glad you asked that. That's a good survey to come later on to tell us what they want. We are supposed to be doing that in the local control funding program. That's how far you get. You're doing that job. And so if you get that back answers to us, we will do what the bottom line of what LCFF, LCAP is, community wants. What's their needs, etc. I like that. Very good. Like you said, those individuals don't know the system. I know that. Okay, I came one time, the model program in Lincoln Elementary and Santa Rosa Unified School District. They have a good program. They get these kids pre-kindergarten and they bring them in half a day, 3 days a week, and tell them about that system. Okay, that's another thing you got to check out. Parent education, exactly. We don't know how to educate. Myself, I went to college. I got a marriage license, got married, but did I know how to become a parent? Or nobody trained me to become a parent. That's obvious. No parent training. I know we needed there. I learned that in the Office of Family Planning. We don't even have, I don't want to get there. Okay, what are we going to do for the future? Very good question. What are we going to do? I'd like to see your recommendations, what we should be doing with these individuals. I think you're in the mix of our community, and I think you have more insight what they need than some of our staff and myself. Okay, Community partners, that's an idea. 3 cities, exactly. We just got very upset just recently. They're partnershiping with us, Sacramento City, dealing with youth employment issues. Okay, some of those kids might need summer jobs at Valley because they live within the school district, within the city, Sacramento City. That would help their attendance. So yes, and our president, mayor of Elk Grove Unified School District, Elk Grove City, he's very concerned about this issue, and his student council or his, he has over there at the Elk Grove City Council, he has a group of kids, students, community students that are very interested in these issues, how we could get more engagement within our students for a variety of reasons.
Mr. Perez, it's past 9 o'clock. Can you wrap up?
Exactly. My fellow board member said there is a California School Board Association annual report, model programs, very similar to yours. Look at their past conferences. It's called the Golden Bell Awards. Variety of school districts within California receive that. Model programs, just like this program, different style, but very successful, and they've been recognized statewide at our California School Board Association. And they receive a lot of monies from a variety of foundations. Foundation monies will give you monies. That's another thing, a way to get monies. And again, I support your idea. You teach the whole child.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Thank you.
Mr.
I'm not finished, by the way, but I concede my time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Madison?
I'm not going to be nearly as long. I think one thing I want to be a little critical of, Mrs. Cerruti and the superintendent as well, a subject matter like this to me is so important. All the board members went on and on, the people from the public and the testimonies. In the future, we should have something like this on the agenda, if it's a workshop or on a day that we can really engross into this. This is a really good subject matter, and I appreciate it. It is getting late in the day, and people can go ahead and talk about this until the sunrise in the morning. No, I can't. I'm not going to take that time up, but I just want to convey that it is an important matter, and we should address it earlier in the day or in another form, because you can see it's a good topic. Number one, Lisa, you're the right person for this job, and I appreciate that. I've had the opportunity to attend your workshop on the teacher home visits, and it was amazing to me, and it really sparked a lot into me. So that's why I made that statement about the importance of something like this. The achievement gap is critical. To having courageous conversations in which we had tonight, bringing things up. Again, we can go on and start really talking about it. And in my opinion, this is the real education that's in the trenches, that if we're going to make progress with our academics, this leads right into it. So again, it's a subject that we can talk for 2 hours in a very productive manner. I've heard my colleagues sit here and go on and on. Not Mr. Perez, but the other ones as well, too. So you see that there's interest in this. So I'm looking forward to more on it and how we can address it. I know all the testimonies, these folks have been in the trenches, and it's real education. And when you mentioned the MetaView area, going in there, a lot of people don't even want to go in that area. It doesn't bother me. But a lot of folks, it bothers a little bit. So it's very intriguing in that area to discuss things like that to help kids. So I'm going to close on that. I'm not going to sit here and go on and on about it, but I just wanted to convey some of my thoughts there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Albiani.
Hi. My fellow board members have addressed many issues I agree with, but I'm going to come at it from a different part. My children come from a family of privilege. I tell them often they live in Disneyland. We have a very blessed house. We have a family that's together. We have a large community that supports them. They have a large family. And I found things in your office that have helped my family as well. So I think it's very important that we help all of our families. And I wanted to tell you, you guys did screenagers at our school. They did it in our social studies class. It was a requirement for my children to make a contract with me about their phones. It led to fabulous conversations. It led to me being able to point to a third party not my idea, somebody else's party that was credible to them because their teacher presented it to them, was credible to them because they were a doctor. It allowed my husband to come at night to see it, so we were on the same team, we were on the same page. It was a true asset to our family. So we are doing fabulous things for many students, and I just want to say, in the spirit of serving all of our families benefit from what your office does. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will try to be brief. Thank you for your excellent presentation. My thanks to the mighty two-person team of the FACE office. I agree with you. I think you're right. You've demonstrated a tremendous amount of work in year one of implementing the 3-year plan, and at the same time, we've just scratched the surface. Both are true. So I want to extend my thanks to not just your team, but every single individual who has volunteered to help carry this out. And thank you for referencing the banner. You know, the work that you're doing is what makes that safe zone real. And it is so critical. I've been a fan of home visits for a very long time, and I'm an even bigger one now, so I will stop at that. I'm not even mad at your colleagues for making me cry. But thank you so much for the update. So not an action item, fabulous report. Thanks very much.
I want to thank Mr. Hoffman, too, for digging that point, that higher.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Next up, we have our public hearing / action items. Just a quick reminder that these are intended as the public's opportunity to weigh in on these. We actually will have another opportunity to take action, particularly on the LCAP items. This is just the first public airing of those, so there's really not a need to have a lengthy conversation about those now. First up, Mr. Riley is presenting public notice.
Good evening again, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman and Ms. Avalos. The Elk Grove Unified School District Governing Board is asked to review the Amalgamated Transit Union initial proposal to Elk Grove Unified School District for the 2017-18 collective bargaining. Pursuant to Government Code Section 3547, the following are stipulated for negotiations between the bargaining unit and the district. The union's initial proposal is officially presented at a public meeting of the governing board for public notice, and a public hearing is conducted to receive public input regarding the union's initial proposal. ATU's initial proposal is attached. It is recommended that after the closure of the public hearing, the board take action to accept ATU's initial proposal.
All right. So I'm going to call for a public hearing to receive comments regarding ATU's initial proposal to the district regarding collective bargaining for the 2017-18 school year. I don't have any blue slips. So seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and call for a motion to accept ATU's initial proposal to the district.
So moved.
Second.
Move and second by Ms. Singh-Allen, Ms. Martinez-O'Leary. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Looks unanimous. Measure passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Next up, Mr. Tolstrup.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, Ms. Avalos. The Board of Education is requested to hold an open hearing for anyone who wishes to address the board in regards to the Elk Grove Unified School District Special Education Annual Service Delivery and Budget Plan.
Thank you. I'm going to call for a public hearing to receive comments regarding the district's annual service delivery and budget plan for special education. I don't have any blue slips, and seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and announce that action will be taken at the June 27th board meeting on this item. Thank you, sir. Next up, Ms. Kathy Hamilton.
Good evening, Ms. Chavez Espinoza, board members, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Avalos. I'm here tonight to ask that you hold a public hearing to solicit the recommendations and comments of members of the public regarding specific actions and expenditures proposed to be included in the Elk Grove Charter School Local Control Accountability Plan. The public hearing shall be posted 72 hours before the meeting and held at the same meeting that the board holds a public hearing on the budget to be adopted tonight. Elk Grove Charter School will bring its LCAP to the board for approval on June 27th.
Okay, so I'm going to call for a public hearing to receive comments regarding Elk Grove Charter School's LCAP. Seeing none, I'm going to close that public hearing and announce that action will be taken, as Ms. Hamilton stated, at the June 27th board meeting on this item.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Next up, Mr. Mark Cerruti.
Thank you again. The Board of Education is requested to hold a public hearing to solicit the recommendations and comments of members of the public regarding specific actions and expenditures proposed to be included in the Elk Grove Unified School District's Local Control Accountability Plan.
All right, Mr. Cerruti, I'm going to call for a public hearing to receive comments regarding Elk Grove Unified School District's LCAP. And seeing none, I'm going to close that public hearing and announce that action will be taken at the June 27th board meeting on this item.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Next up, Ms. Shannon Hayes.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, Ms. Salas. I am very, very excited to be here tonight. I know that you guys probably find this well, you could find it entertaining. I love my job. I have been doing this for over 26 years. There is nothing that I don't learn on a daily basis, and I think that's what keeps me engaged. Our budget development process actually starts in January when the governor announces his proposal. And this process is pushed into what the budget department does on a normal basis. So this is a huge accomplishment for staff. And I never look at our budget in total. Don't ask me why. I mean, it's not anything that I avoid or anything like that, but I don't look at it in total. And somebody had asked me one time how much money did we have as a district collectively. And because of Measure M, we will be approaching the 1 billion mark. So that is a huge deal for us as a district as far as I'm concerned. I don't like playing with little money, obviously. I only play with big money, is how I say. Anyway, tonight what I bring to you is our budget. And we're going to go through that and then ask that you hold a public hearing on the budget when we're done. So we're going to look at some enrollment trends. We're going to revisit 16-17 and what our estimated actuals look like. And then we'll take a look at our 17-18 preliminary adopted budget. We'll look at our multi-year projections and then our the rest of our entire budget, which is all of the other funds, which we don't actually speak to, but we do have. Some of the factors with our local control funding formula that comes into play that is very, very important for us are these three specific targeted subgroups. So free and reduced lunch count, EL, foster youth. And those three subgroups are counted in an unduplicated manner. And why this becomes important is if we drop below 55% of unduplicated students, then we run the risk of losing a portion of our LCFF funding. For us traditionally here in Elk Grove, as the economy gets better, we tend to shrink with our free and reduced lunch count numbers. So this is kind of, we started in 13-14, so we don't have a lot of history here, but we have been declining. Right now we're at 56.32%. And we went down from 58%. So we want to make sure that we're counting all of our children as we should be. That way we can maintain that threshold of above 55%. So for 17-18, we are projecting flat. We're not projecting any increases. And so we're hoping that that percentage holds. Changes to our 16-17 budget. You guys took action tonight actually to approve our last final budget transfer of the year where we recognized adjustments with our P2ADA. We adjusted revenue from our lottery projections. We also recognized some interest earnings. And then in the expenditure area, we did have one damaged bus that we needed to purchase. And then in our instructional materials budget, we did reduce that to reflect what we were actually going to expend for the rest of this fiscal year. To recap where we went from our adoption in, actually, it was the end of June of 16. Our adopted budget we adopted with deficit spending of $11 million. We continued that trend all the way through first interim. First interim was a reinstatement of carryover for funding priorities and some other items that you guys took action on, and we're projected deficit spending of $10 million when we close this year. For 17-18, the May revise had our gap closure increased to 43%, which is approximately $11 million of ongoing revenue. We did adjust lottery revenues to reflect the new projection. We had a reduction of one-time discretionary block grant. Originally, when the governor presented the budget, we had one-time funding in there. For us, it was about $2.8 million. Those monies have been proposed in his May revise to be authorized in May of 2019. So we're waiting to see what happens now with the legislature's budget and what the governor does going forward. If those funds are put back in the budget that they adopt, then we will recognize those as part of our 45-day revision. We did budget the board-approved ongoing and one-time funding priorities, and we did increase our routine restricted maintenance deposit up to 3%, which was an additional $2.5 million. The reason we took advantage of that is with Prop 51, we can't go forward to exercise our right to access those funds without having that 3% contribution, so we went ahead and made that entry this year. For our 2017-18 preliminary adopted budget, this is what we look like. So deficit spending 10.9. If you recall, you've taken action to approve $12 million in one-time funding priorities. We had level 1, level 2 funding priorities, and then we had excuse me, an adjustment for summer school, and then to finish out our synergy implementation. This is our new multi-year projection for 17-18. We are deficit spending in the first year. Second year we look okay. The third year out, we had some different projections that are proposed. The estimated 2019-20 ongoing revenue, originally we thought would be around $16 million. Based on what the governor proposed in his May revision, it's dropped down to 13. So we are deficit spending in that third year. That will become problematic for us going forward if they don't fully fund the LCFF or economic slow growth does come to fruition and we do start seeing a downturn in our economy again. So the rest of the budget. This is the restricted side of the house. This funds all of our grants and categorical programs. So we have about $32 million in federal revenue that comes in, another $70 million in state, and then the contribution of $89 million is primarily special ed and routine restricted maintenance. Fund 9 is our Elk Grove Charter School. They're within their own fund. They have LCFF revenue as well as property tax that we send over to them to fund their operations. We have Fund 11, which is our Adult Education Fund. That now comprises of their adult ed block grant and some federal funding and some fee-based programs. Fund 12, which is our Child Development Fund. This is all categorical funds that funds all preschool programs across the district. Fund 13, which are Food and Nutrition Services Fund. This actually has a contribution of one time of $600,000 from the unrestricted general fund to sustain operations. Fund 14, which is leftover deferred maintenance money. So as that program sunset and became part of the LCFF, we did have residual that we've been using, and we're down to, as you can see there, $349,000. We have Fund 25, which is the Capital Facilities Fund. This is revenue received from fees for development of our construction in our schools. Fund 35 is our Modernization and State Building Fund. Fund 40, which is primarily Proposition 39 expenditures right now. Fund 49, which is capital facilities projects that are funded by our Melleroos. Fund 52, which is our debt service fund. Fund 67, which is our self-insurance fund, which this year we do have a change effective July 1st where we have changed providers. We are now using SIA as our workers' comp claims provider. And that's all of our district budgets. So we're waiting, bring this back on June 27th for formal approval. We'll be waiting to see what happens with the state's final budget. Whatever significant changes come from that, we will do a 45-day budget revision, which usually lands about August for us. And then we'll be bringing back our 2016-17 unaudited actuals for your review and approval in September. And with that, we'll have the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Any questions from the board? Seeing none on my left, on my right, thank you very much. So I'm going to call for a public hearing. Okay, Mr. Perez.
Page 13, you said contingent, what did you say it was, supplemental funding that was carried over?
On the deferred maintenance program,
What page?
13.
14, I think. What did you say, what page did you say there was supplemental funding that was carried over? I think I heard you say that there was supplemental or monies that were carried over.
So our deferred maintenance fund that's on page 13, these were monies that were rolled into the LCFF. So deferred maintenance used to be a state-funded program that they would send monies to us for deferred maintenance projects. So that program doesn't exist anymore, but we have residual in the fund from 2007-08 that we've been doing miscellaneous different projects with.
And what kind of program was that?
Deferred maintenance?
What
Oh,
they
it was
do?
for like fixing roofs, and it's not major construction and it's not modernization. So it's just more repairs.
Was, where was your money that was left over in ROP?
So the ROP funds, which was in our, it shows, are you referring to this slide, number 7?
but-
Oh,
Oh, that's what I was looking for. I couldn't find, oh, there you go. Is that 7?
yes.
So explain that to me, how we, that money we haven't spent, right?
It's monies that we've reserved. So are you talking about ROP specifically?
Yes.
So ROP used to be a Sacramento County Office of Ed funded program. We had ADA generated funds that they would send to us
For what?
to support ROP programs in our district.
For student summer employment?
No, it would be ROP classes that were part of the day.
Part of the classes?
Right. So that program went away with LCFF, and Sacramento County Office of Ed kept their money and didn't send us money anymore. So this money that's sitting here, this $528,000, is what's left over that Kathy uses on a one-time basis to fund new pathways, new CTE type programs. So it's there for her as she needs it. So this year, she requested $69,000 of those funds to be used for new program development for this school year.
So as board members, and we get together, our minds together, we could propose something to how to spend that money besides her, or give her direction?
The reserves themselves are always approved by the board, and the ROP CTE reserve was established back in 2008-09, I believe. And so that's just been out there and carrying forward for her, specifically for CTE programs.
During the day.
During the day, yes.
During the day, right?
Right.
Now, these classes, well, I heard some classes, they pay students a stipend. Could that be done?
These monies are not restricted in the manner of which they can be used. So it's part of the unrestricted general fund. So if the need was equipment, it could be equipment. If the need was staff time, it could be staff time. It wouldn't be for contracted staff time because these are one-time monies. So it'd be something on a timesheet of that nature.
Well,
it just depends on what's going on with Kathy's program.
I was wondering, the city of Sacramento has classes. They instruct kids on careers and ROP issues, right? And they pay a stipend for kids. So is that type of program we could use?
I can't speak to that. Kathy's ROP program has many different components to it. There could be a student-based component to where we're paying students. I just don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. On that note, I'm going to call for a public hearing to receive comments regarding, regarding the 2017-18 adopted budget. I don't have any blue slips. Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and announce that action will be taken at the June 27th board meeting on this item. Thank you very much, Ms. Hayes. Next, discussion items, none. Discussion action items, none. Next up, Mr. Hoffman. confirmation of safe and positive learning environment for all.
Yeah, so not a presentation. This is actually the resolution that was already brought to the board. In past, we did get feedback from the board that they wanted so a language adjustment on page 2, number 6. We worked with the subcommittee, inserted that language, and that language is now included in number 6. So I think it's ready to go for final approval.
Thank you very much. My thanks to Mr. Hoffman and the members of the subcommittee for incorporating that feedback, and of course all the stakeholders who worked on the first draft and approving that update. So I would like to call for a motion to approve the modification to item number 6 on page 2 of resolution number 77.
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Moved and second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 That's unanimous. Thank you. Measure passes. Next item, board member and superintendent reports. So board members who wish to submit reports on official business subcommittees. Looking to my left, and I see none. To my right, Mr. Madison, do I see you getting ready? No. No? Ms. Albiani, no reports?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Superintendent? Okay. Thanks very much. Action items, other items from the floor. I don't think we have anything. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to mention that I want to give thanks out to the secondary education department for the fine graduation that we went through at the new arena. Hats off to Ms. Penna and all the others that were behind you helping them. It was a wonderful event. I think all 9 high schools was very happy, very representative, so thank you.
And I second that. Fabulous. Thanks everybody for your patience. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Well.